Call to order our June 25th Tourism and Arts Commission meeting. We're not approving minutes from, are we?
Yeah, so we have the minutes from May 31st.
Gosh, okay.
And I wasn't at that meeting, right? Because I don't join until June, or did I join in May? I don't remember.
I did not know that I saw.
I think we joined in May.
I
You were
joined in
May 1st.
You're right, I was May 1, not June 1.
Yes, I remember. The clock was ticking.
What the minutes? Oh my
I
God.
was going to say, but we
I
didn't
don't
have,
remember minutes.
we didn't have copies of them, did we?
Yeah,
I'm sure she gave us copies.
Oh, was that?
Jennifer's so efficient.
I was gonna say,
we can always table that for the next one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
let's do that.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. I know we traditionally jump in and, well, I know we have to do
Oh.
disclosures and whatnot of conflicts of interest. But and then we generally go into dollar amounts per fund. I think this year is a little bit different, maybe where we might have some discussion on some newer proposals that necessarily didn't fit our traditional mold of event per se. And so I kind of would like to, after we do conflicts of interest, go into
You're talking about Dragonfire and the
radio,
Radio, okay.
which you were sent the information on, right? Right, Ashley, the grant proposals
Okay.
on that. So I think there, at least I had possibly some clarification questions on those that may affect,
I don't even know
but anyhow,
if they're,
so I guess we could lead with our conflict of interest declarations.
you want to start?
Well,
Do
do
you
we
have
need
any?
to, should we explain, since we have a couple of new people, what the definitions of those were, Ashley?
Sure.
Okay,
Okay, so what we need to do is go over whether or not we have actual potential conflicts of interest. So what we're looking at is, whether or not you have a fiduciary or whether or not you have a financial pecuniary interest in the decision that you're about to make. And if you definitely have a financial interest in any of the decisions that you're about to make, then you have an actual conflict of interest. And you have to declare that conflict, and then you cannot participate in any vote or decision or discussion on that item. So conflicts pertain to you as a person, a relative of yours, which includes members of your household, or any business for which you are associated. And that includes nonprofits if you take a salary from them. So if, for instance, funding one of these events would directly impact you, a relative or business for which you're associated with directly, then you have an actual conflict, you can't participate. If it is a question, like it could potentially impact you, a relative or business for which you're associated financially, then you have a potential conflict of interest, and you have to announce the conflict, describe it at a very high level, and then you can, announce whether or not you'd be biased in making that decision. And if you have a potential conflict, you could still make a decision without any bias, and then you can go ahead and participate in the discussion and the decision on those items. If you have any questions about, whether or not you have an actual or potential conflict of interest, those are questions that you need to direct to a private attorney or the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, and they can pretty quickly assist you if you give them a call. So any questions about what the legal standard is? Nope. Okay.
great. So does anyone at the table or Drea online feel that they need to recuse themselves from any of the line items for conflict of interest? Do we need to
Yeah.
go around and say yes or no? By individual?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. I was jumping right in and saying yes.
That's fine, go ahead.
I think I should recuse myself from the gallery group decision.
Okay.
I'm on the gallery group, so, and my business is as well. would benefit. So,
Just the gallery group?
yes.
That That makes sense.
Okay,
Ashley, I'm on the marketing committee for the chamber. But I don't see any direct financial gains. I'm just on the marketing committee.
It's a volunteer position.
Yes, and I'm not paid. Okay,
Then
thank
I
you.
would
I
not
thought-
consider
I think
that.
So, but I thought I'd just check.
Perfect.
So I don't have any conflicts of interest.
So the only very remote one is with the Cannon Beach Arts Association. So Lynn, some of my wife's work has been shown there and sold there. And there's still a couple of pieces that are there that could be sold. I don't really gain anything when they get sold. I mean, I'm entitled to 50% of the sale price, but I always just donate it right back to them again, so I don't get it. And, we're talking about pieces that sell for $250 to $300, so, it's not a
Okay, so
lot. I don't know if it's an issue or
What
not.
you're saying is you or your wife have art that's shown in a
Right.
gallery, and the gallery might benefit from one of
My
these
wife-
grant awards.
Wife is no longer alive and is no longer producing art, so there isn't any current art being produced there, so,
I would declare it as a potential conflict of interest.
okay. I mean, I'm willing to keep out of that decision if it matters, to keep things clean.
A potential conflict of interest doesn't necessarily require you to recuse yourself. It's just a announcement that that decision could potentially, as I understand it, and I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you, but what I thought I heard you say is that there was art hanging in the gallery. In the gallery, these events could potentially drive people to the gallery, which would benefit you and your wife financially, even though you choose to donate the money back. Did I get that correct?
Yes,
I would just say that that's a potential conflict of interest. I would declare it as such. And if you feel like you can still participate in the decision and the discussion, then you may do so.
okay.
okay. I do not feel I have any conflict of interest.
I just bring this up all the time. I can call it potential, but I don't feel I have any issue with it. A couple of the events, specifically the Comedy Fest, sometimes some of the gallery group things, sometimes Coaster Theater things, they will come and rent rooms at my hotel for the events or the bands or the things. It's nothing structured. I don't care if they do or they don't. It's just being closest to hotel to Coaster Theater, it happens. And I've said the same thing in the past and just called it a potential conflict, which I don't feel is a problem.
Okay. Great. Okay. So
Okay.
we've cleared those through.
So for through the potentials, it sounds like we have Drea who is declaring an actual conflict. And so what I would do is I would separate the gallery from the overall vote. And I understand that might be a little difficult. But Jen, because then Drea can vote on everything else but the gallery. Does that
Okay,
work?
Done that, okay. Do we want to ask her first about Sea Turtles Forever and the radio, about whether we
Yes.
can even consider them?
Yes, I think that is an important thing. So,
Which one first?
well, we've got sea turtles as item 10, so let's start with that.
So sea turtles, actually, I was looking at the other two last night, so I haven't been able to go over this one. Could somebody just give me a high level overview of what it is? Sorry, I missed it.
Do you want,
Sure.
do you want to do?
I mean,
You've actually seen them working.
Yeah.
so-
Yeah,
So they coordinate and actually accomplish beach cleanups specific to microplastic. And they've done it in Cannon Beach in the past. They have received grant money from the city in the past as a line item that went away. They essentially will use the money. I'm not looking at their application right now, but use the money to hire coordinators that will then basically coordinate and wrangle the volunteers that they bring in to do a number of different scheduled cleanups of various parts of the beach throughout the city, or beaches of Cannon Beach. So that's what they, we could discuss, there are some holes in how that aligns to what we do, definitely. But that's in a nutshell how I see what they do.
Okay. So let me actually, if we could put a hold on that one, we can talk about the other two. I'm going to read the application materials while you guys move on to other things. Because I love that program, but I'm not sure that it really fits the statutory use. And so I want to take a closer look. I have looked at the radio and the maps. So the map one is pretty easy. So yeah, I think that definitely fits the definition of tourism promotion, which is distributing, part of it is distributing information for the purpose of attracting and welcoming tourists. What I understand is that is a map for tourists to highlight some of the shopping areas or the shopping in Cannon Beach. Do I understand that correctly?
Correct.
I think that pretty squarely fits into the statutory definition. I don't have any concerns about that one. The radio station, I do. So my understanding of the application materials is it's a radio signal. And so, I mean, there's just a high level overview. There's two ways that we can meet this definition. We can do a tourist facility, which is, improved real property with a useful life of 10 years or more with a substantial purpose of serving tourists. As I read the application materials, it is not like improved real property. There's adding equipment to an existing tower. Is that your guys' understanding as well?
Yes.
Okay. So then we can't use that one. So now we have to go to tourism promotion. And tourism promotion includes advertising, publicizing, or distributing information for the purpose of attracting and welcoming tourists. As I understand it, their part of their application is that it's going to be local programming, highlighting local artists, and also during the programming, they're going to be publicizing local events, providing information for tourism, but there's also going to be a lot of like music and talk and so forth. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, I think we can fund some of this, but we would need more information, and we'd only be able to really fund the percentage of their programming that directly supports tourism. So if, we're looking at 100% of the airtime, what percentage of that airtime is promoting a local event or encouraging, providing information for tourists? And then when we looked at their overall funding, we'd be able to fund like that percentage of their overall package. So I think we would need some more information from them before we could move forward with that.
What they're specifically asking for is to get the signal on the air, which seems like it's not at all appropriate for us. And what I said in the meeting was, well, once this is going, I could see that we would promote a portion, whatever, like you said, like whatever portion is actually doing promotion. But is it our job or is it on our purview to actually get the signal going? That doesn't seem like a tourist thing at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's a substantial stretch. And I think like we could make the argument, I think to your point, that like if it was going, how much of it is actually going to tourism promotion? And I guess like even more of a stretch, getting the infrastructure together to help promoting tourism. So I think it's twofold, does it fit your guys' mission? And then, I think we'd only be able to fund a portion of it, if anything, and we would need a lot more information.
Very helpful.
So if you wouldn't mind, I'll read the sea turtle thing. And if you guys can move on, I will raise my hand sort of when I'm ready on that one.
Great. Jennifer, were you able to get that reserve number for the budget?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
So,
sorry. I asked Jennifer for the existing over reserve budget.
For what we have for our TAP awards is what's on the spreadsheet, the $523,863 is your budget. That's
Okay.
what's in the budget book.
Okay.
We also have allocated as a tourism purpose, which is money we put in the budget, not allocated to anything specific, but it's in the budget, so that means you can spend it, is $602,739.
602,000.
Yeah, so
And
that total is $1,126,602.
But it has to be tourist spent under our guides.
Now, is the 602 pre-bathrooms or post-bed?
Post. So
Okay.
the bathrooms is separate from that, and so we have separated it into tourism and art funds. Tourism purpose, is that your material and supplies, material and services item? And then because the restrooms is a capital outlay, that's separate, and that's $477,525.
And that's not in any of these numbers here. Those are all been taken
Yeah,
out.
that's
Okay.
So you guys basically for your TAF awards are 523 budgeted, but there's a reserve of 602,000. And you're obviously not gonna spend the 523, you only have 337 in
Right.
rest,
Mhm.
so,
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's.
thank you. I just wanted
separate
to,
from,
Okay.
yeah, and because one's capital outlay, they actually separate them out, so it makes it really easy. We
Okay.
have, materials and services and capital outlay. So your whole budget though, just so you know, is $1.6 million for the
Okay.
entire fund.
Okay.
okay.
Good. Did I just miss this with that 602 is from where? Like
That's your,
previous years?
yeah, well, yeah, and.
Rollover or?
Rollover, and Lori always tends to budget on the lower side. We've always been bringing in more money than that. We haven't spent the last couple of years the full amount because the asks have been less. So we've had some really great years. And so that number has definitely shot up. So typically your guys, she's been budgeting at like 481 the last few
Yeah.
years. This year she did bump it up when she did the budget because she knew we were gonna have more money coming in anyways. And so she went ahead and said, let's just bump it up just in case. Maybe you'll get more things.
Mhm.
And then the residual from that is still the 602,000.
Okay.
Well,
It's so funny because you think about those days, remember when you guys wanted that reserve so bad?
Yes.
Now,
Now we have it.
Oh, my
a lot
God.
has changed.
Yeah.
But you got it, what are you gonna do with it?
Yep.
And I mean, not that we would do that, but if there were the second set of things that may or may not get funded, then that's the pot that we use to do that. For
From, like,
instance,
other
bathrooms, yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
okay. Okay. Are there, traditionally, we go in order going down. I just wanted to ask, are there any clarification or questions that you guys feel that,
I have a couple questions, but I can do them as we go through.
okay, should we do it that way, kind of broach? Okay, so let's start with the Cannon Beach Arts Association, the artist program. Goes from October through the end of September. They requested $27,260. Last year, they asked for 28,000 and they received 28,000. And the year before that, I just, as I'm comparing those three spreadsheets, they were at 32 and received 31,560. So, generally, we go around in order. If there are not any questions on that, then should we take a vote as to what we would like to fund?
Well, I think we just fill in the numbers
Okay.
first, don't we? Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you got, okay.
So what's Jackie's number?
Jackie?
Oh, I would say the 27,260.
Okay.
Yeah,
Full.
7,260.
Okay, I'm 27,260 as well.
I'm 26. And Drea can do this one, right?
Yes. I'm also 27,260.
27,260.
and then just for my tracking purposes, Greg, do you have the average is 27,008?
Average. Just on the spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Oh, I have two, no, give me
Oh,
two,
okay.
I have two,
So
I
you
have,
just did yours, okay.
yeah, but I have two I have to fill in.
Average should be 27,260.
No.
No, 'cause I'm
Julia's
26.
got- Yeah,
Oh,
down.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Yeah.
so that came out to 27,008.
Yeah, perfect, okay, we're matching.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Next is the Chamber of Commerce Fat Bike Festival.
It's events,
No,
it's
events
videos.
and
Video
tourism.
Videos first.
Oh, I'm looking at the,
Well, it says fat bike next to it, but then it says events
Oh.
and tourism.
oh, sorry.
It sure does.
I was reading the left column. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
let's
Let's
do
see, okay.
event event and tourism is the $19,750 request. Is that right?
So I have a question on that one. Basically, because they're not doing the Native American video, right, that we had talked about. So they have 4 slots left.
They had, I don't have it with me, but there were several open
There were
slots. to
3
do
open
tag
slots,
things.
but then there was also the Native American one that they said they're not gonna do this year, so that gives them 4 slots. Which seems,
Well, some of them may not even get filled in this
yeah.
year. Yeah.
So what happens to that extra money if
It
they
would come
don't?
back if they
it
don't
comes
spend
back
it. It
to us.
always comes back
Okay.
if they don't spend it.
Okay, that's
And it's not just the chamber.
being a newbie.
If anybody, if it doesn't, it comes back,
That's what
yeah.
I'm saying.
They don't
Okay.
just get to keep it.
All right, that's what I was wondering. Okay, so I would say 19,750.
Okay. Tom?
So my question
Oh, yeah.
is, then it's somewhat related. I mean, do we want to be funding to be determined videos? Or do we want to know what those videos are before they are funded?
And I have thought about that for a bit. Part of it is they're going into the year of funding the project, so when they submit that, they don't always know what, I mean, they know the old
They don't
tried
know
and
what's
true
getting approved
ones.
At this meeting,
Mhm.
for one. So part of their thing is to do videos of TAC approved things. So without knowing what this is and then what council approves, it's hard to guess what the video will be about. So there's
So-
that.
So then my question becomes,
Mhm.
is there a mechanism or does it make sense to create a mechanism or we create too much work, whatever, whereby we sit down and say, okay, we're gonna set the requested amount, what was it, 19,750
Mhm.
aside, but we only actually fund it when you come back to us and tell us what you're gonna use it for. So you come back and say, okay, I'm gonna do a video on food art in the city, and we need $5,000 for that. And then, so, okay, you can have the 5,000 out of that amount.
Then we would have to re-meet every time they came and said, part of it is you're trusting the chamber to know what they're doing. And they're not just gonna do some dorky video.
So
So
we're
if you
sort of
can-
doing that by giving them a to be determined amount, yeah.
But you're trusting them to
Yeah.
know what they're doing and that Sierra knows what she's doing and that kind of thing. And if they don't spend it, it comes back to us. Because then otherwise, can you imagine? It's kind of like micromanaging the chamber. That you would say, well, come and pitch us what your videos are gonna be. It's like, give them the money or don't give them the money. If they don't spend it, it's coming back to us. And then next year, if you've got a problem and if they chose a dorky thing, you tell them you chose a dorky thing. We don't want to fund you again.
Good.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does, and the only thing I would add to that is if you look back historically, they've asked this, I don't know if it's been every year, but every
Yeah.
other year or something. And you look at their library, they use Seth Morrissey, who's local. And he produces a good product, and they've done the wine,
Saver.
the Savor and Get Lit and a handful of other ones about Christmas and.
Yeah, they did some on Fat Bucket. They're all on YouTube.
Yeah, they're all out there and they're quality. My concern is, and this is the micromanaging piece is, I don't think they distribute and get them out as well as they could to everybody. Which is if I gave feedback if they were here, that's what I'd be saying. But
I will
they're,
give that feedback.
Yeah.
I agree.
but their
Yeah,
product is,
Marketing committee of the.
Yeah.
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 but the product is good.
Yes.
You know,
the
it has
product
been
is
historic,
great.
historic.
And they honestly got any, the only bad thing, which was the video that he first did for Saver. But he was not given good direction, which was him talking, like, nobody wants to see you talk, Seth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and nobody wants to see you talk, just do a video about the event. And so once he was given direction, and then we also told him that that's great to have a long form, but we also need the 30-second and minute ones that we can use. So, and he took that feedback and has done that, so.
I got to thinking after our last meeting, though, now that the chamber is really utilizing that experience, Cannon Beach Instagram it's almost like maybe not this year, but you're down the road. Does part of this component not become a long format video, but them also publicizing on the Experience Cannon Beach? You know, the snippets or
Well,
like
absolutely.
during the events and that kind of stuff. So
Absolutely.
that's where I was like, okay, do we say? Not that we get a new event every year, but maybe one of those events, if they say is a new one, you know, pick a new one, or maybe we put criteria going forth, like, you know, 2 existing, 1 new if possible, and you know, something like that
Mhm.
out of our realm. We might be too late in the cycle
Mhm.
this year, but I think that is something that I thought about after the fact, like, some criteria behind it. But yes, if they're giving it back, then we kind of have to analyze how they did, and yes.
Okay, given that, I'm comfortable with going 19,750.
Ashley's ready.
Yeah.
Yes, we don't know if she's ready for sea turtles or if she had a comment on
Oh.
what we're talking about. So
Okay.
let's grab her real quick.
I'm ready for sea turtles when you guys are. I didn't want to interrupt, but just letting you guys know.
Okay,
Should we finish this
yeah,
line?
let's
and-
finish up, the event
Okay.
tourism video. So Tom, you said 19,750.
Yeah, fine
I
with
will fully fund the 19,750. Julie?
12,000.
Okay.
I'm the big naysayer.
Drea?
I will fund 19,750.
Greg?
17,000.
Thank you. It's not just me. Remember, I was.
So I'm just curious if you can fill me in on your thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, on the shortage
Yeah.
thing. And I tend to be consistent on this as we go down. I think people, I mean, they have a quote from what it's going to cost. I think the chamber has some leeway in their own budget, not a lot, but because they get city funding for the marketing of Cannon Beach and the visitor center and all that. But they also have membership funds that are part of that budget. And so instead of fully funding, I was kind of torn, like how much. I think it's something that if it's something that you're gonna come back every year or every couple of years on, somewhere along the lines, I've got it in my head that, you know, we're trying to make, whether it's an event or project, somewhat self-sustaining. And so I just pull back a little bit in this particular case, and I did a little under 20%, I think it was.
Okay.
17, maybe. Yeah, some, a little over 10, but, so that was my reasoning.
And are you asking for mine too? Okay.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand if I'm missing something here.
I'm guessing, being on the marketing committee, that we weren't gonna use all, and part of it is the second part of this, which is the 10,000 foot level. I'm also thinking about what we would like to fund and thinking, this is all fine, but there's big goals on the other side too. So I'm thinking, well, let's get reasonable, because the stuff that probably would be on the agenda to fund at the 10,000 foot level are big and expensive, but important. So I just don't think I don't think they're gonna use it all anyway. And I think 12,000 is enough with the number of videos we have coming.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I got 18,200.
Yes, 18,200.
Okay.
I love it when computers think the same.
I know.
I know.
Do we want to jump to sea turtles and see what she has to say? or-
While it's fresh in her brain,
Okay,
should we?
Okay.
Okay. So Sea Turtles, as I understand it, is kind of requesting 2 things. So they're requesting funds for the daily operations of removing microplastics from the beach 5 days a week. And then they also have special events where they bring volunteers in. Is that your guys' understanding of what they're asking for daily operations plus the events?
Yes.
So the events, it seems like they can make a case that they are bringing people to Cannon Beach, that they're bringing hundreds of volunteers in for, those 3 big events. It sounds like they all come from Portland. The criteria is either they're traveling from 50 miles away or they're spending the night. So I think we can, along with sort of how Cannon Beach has interpreted the statute to include funding events, I think we could fund those events using the same criteria. But the ongoing daily operations, I'm less sure about without receiving more information from them. It sounds like it's been going on for a number of years. So we could either, ask them, or we could either fund, some portion of this that goes towards just those funding of, those special events, or we could ask them to come back next year with a more targeted proposal with more information about, who's coming from where, whether or not they're staying in hotels, and what percentage of their budget goes to those events.
Right. Ashley, part of our discussion during the interview was the fact that the event time frame was set for June through September because the technology that they currently had worked best when it was dry weather. And then we got into some discussion about, could this be more of a off, shoulder season time frame, and discussing technology around that. And there seemed to be,
I don't think the state
Potential.
cares whether it's in the summer or
They
not, so
don't,
it's not a
okay.
legal thing.
okay,
It's
that
a
was just
City council thing.
a city
Yeah.
council.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was going to say that my guidance here is just based on the statute, not based on your guys' specific
Okay.
question for the shoulder season. And I wasn't commenting on whether or not it was arts.
Okay,
Just
Okay.
under the statute, I think we need a little bit more, unfortunately. I mean, it's a great program. Unfortunately, I think we just need a little bit more information about what we would be funding and really targeting, the funding, the portions that bring people to Cannon Beach.
okay. Yeah, like. So in regards to that, then do we think we have to go back to them and say
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the
event
problems
specific?
is that they couldn't tell us if the people they were bringing in were even going to stay, or if they were just there for the day, or if they were, and that's, we can't base the number on, how many days they're actually here, how much, like, there's just not enough information, I think.
So are we gonna do sea turtles now?
Are we gonna do sea turtles now instead of one that one?
Well, guess we can go back. I mean, we can go
That's
back to
fine.
the order. I
don't
just,
really care, I just want.
I don't
Yeah,
know if
exactly.
I don't know if that discussion impacts
The
people's
rest of it, yeah.
decisions on the rest, I guess, but we can certainly keep it in order. That's what I just didn't know if the radio and that, where we needed clarification, and the maker's map did that. If we don't feel, then let's stay in order.
All right.
And go back to that bike.
So
That's
Chair, just
that.
to note, I'm going to turn off my camera just so you're not staring at my face, staring back at you guys, but I'm here and listening. And so if you need me, just let me know.
Thank you.
Okay, for Fat Bike, I have a question.
Mhm.
They are asking for 18,000, but they sell tickets, right? And there's no, so is this a fundraiser for the chamber, or is it? Because in their budget, I don't see anywhere where they say, and we made this much in ticket sales.
Yeah,
Didn't it say what their ticket sales were this
I
year?
didn't think
I
I
thought
saw
it was in there, but it's minuscule. I mean,
Yeah, it's tiny.
they're not trying to be self-sufficient, which I ding them for personally. But it is, I feel the play is just the direct draw of bringing people in for an event and the heads and beds kind of model.
Mhm.
And I didn't do it this year, but, looking at the number of participants and, the average spend per person per night, if you kind of do that, it comes pretty close to $17,000. So I feel it's kind of a break even.
Mhm.
And then if you have, I remember,
A beautiful sunny day?
yeah, like a beautiful sunny day and the year that they had the, go around town and show your receipt thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so forth, and, people were like, oh yeah, they bought $400 worth of art, and, and so you start to add those up, there's no way we can know every single thing.
Yeah.
But those people are buying beers, they're getting food, they're doing this, and so kind of by my rough calculation, I'm like, it pretty much breaks even.
Mhm.
If they were asking for 60,000, it'd be a whole different ballgame.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just was curious, because on their budget, all they put is 5,550 for marketing, 250 for permits, 1,700 for events support supplies, and 10,500 for an event and logistics management.
There's no tickets.
And there's no ticket sales on there, so I have no idea how much they made to say,
Yeah.
well, look, you made this much
I
on,
didn't have the results from this year.
well, it's
And
not on
well,
this.
this is the budget for
Yeah,
next year.
I'm looking on the.
On their
the
results.
Profit and loss,
Attendees, yeah.
but that's for the entire, oh, these might help.
So here's the issue. The first year they did it, they didn't have tickets and nobody
Yeah.
took it for real because they were like,
Mhm.
it doesn't cost
Yeah.
anything.
Right.
So like people were like, so they started charging $10
Mhm.
to just make it look legit, so people would actually show up.
Gotcha.
So they are selling tickets. It's not, I don't know the exact number either. I know they're selling tickets, but it's not much.
And he said they were
This is
selling
what-
merchandise.
Mhm.
Which, could become a fundraiser,
Yeah.
Right.
because that could definitely be.
I mean, I'm not saying it's not bringing people in, I'm just curious as to, what their actual cost is.
Right.
Yeah, they put down here income source projected registrations, but there was
They
no,
didn't fill it in.
they didn't fill it in. I'm just doing quick Google search to see if I can see what they charge.
Say it was around $40.
Yeah, I was
So what
thinking
I'm saying-
40 or 50 or something like that.
I
is
don't
what
think it
they-
was 50, I think it was 40, I think you're right.
Registration opens found.
But so I guess I'm saying, whereas when they profit from that, or when they, the money that they're getting back and we're paying it for the whole event, then where does that money go?
Cause they are not,
Does that go to the
normally
chamber?
they're hooked
We'll go to the
to
chamber.
the chamber.
Mhm.
Okay,
And the merch would too.
okay. Sorry,
See,
when
if the
I,
merch became a big deal,
Mhm.
then they would start to have to ask for less, because, yeah,
yeah,
of course.
Now you're making.
And my question to them was, can you make this, is it possible to make it less weather dependent?
Mhm.
And that's, to me, that's what I can't remember her name, the lady who runs it, she's down in Newport. She's running the thing in Newport, she's gotta know a way to make it.
But she's
less
trying
dependent.
to,
Daniela.
Daniela, thank you.
but she's also trying to keep it on the shoulder season, right? So,
Yeah, no, for
Yeah.
sure. Oh, no,
Yeah.
that's the problem with all of this stuff.
Well, I mean, and it's not, this is not so much the ride, but the things they do in between. So they've, like, 2 of the years, they've had the bonfire at night,
Right,
which no one's riding, they're all hanging out.
Yeah.
But if they do it outdoors, because there's nowhere in this town to do it indoors.
yeah.
Really, and that has always been a limiting factor. And then the one year that was gorgeous, it was a big, I believe it was a success.
And we got video of it.
Yeah,
Thank you, Seth.
So. Said they, 43 because of the bad weather. The previous year was 53. So I mean, you can kind of take a rough estimate if you calculation.
Okay,
Any other questions on
The other
that?
question is the city, or is the chamber, are they capable of soliciting and getting funding from like bike companies and that sort of thing to support an event like this?
that would be the question for Daniela.
I know
And
they talked
thought-
about
I think
getting
They did talk about doing that.
Booths with
Mhm.
having bike reps there, but I don't know if there was a sponsorship fee involved in that. It was more like an
They
educational.
didn't do it. They
Yeah.
haven't done it yet, but they
Yeah, they
talked
were
about it.
talking about it. but I
I would
didn't know
think
if
that they
it
could
was.
give that to Daniela to do.
So they could potentially get sponsorship funding.
I think they could. Do you think there's a reason why they couldn't? They
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to put booths or anything on the beach because of it being a state park if you were gonna,
No, you just have to get a permit.
but you can't sell anything on the beach. Unless you have a
Unless you-
permit for that. That's
yeah.
true, you can.
Yeah,
But-
you just have to get permits for that.
And I don't know the answer to this, but I do specifically remember the very first year that they had this, there was that big one in Carmel area
Yeah.
that all the bike industry people were at.
Yeah.
And they were like, our goal is to kind of change the dates around and get a bike manufacturer or third party, whatever, to be here to do some of that stuff, and in which case they might do in-kind things like rental bikes,
Mhm.
or they might give cash, but that had not happened at that time. And then this year, I don't think the question came up,
Yeah.
or I don't want to call it.
But I mean, depending on what our number ends up being and what city council approves, they could certainly get told. Then, get Daniela on it that, I mean, she has almost a year to be able to do something like that for next year, if the number is well below or whatever, so,
Yeah, I mean, you would think one of these e-bike sponsors would want to come down and
yeah.
donate $1,500 to be like the marquee sponsor.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
And then, so for what is it? $18,000, even if they're just doing a little bit, that's a chunk.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, Jackie,
I'm gonna say 15,000.
Tom,
Yeah, 15,000 is the number I had in mind too.
I was going to say 7. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna do 16.5.
I was at 18 on this one.
Okay. Drea?
18 for me.
And Greg?
17.
So Greg, I just discovered an error on my spreadsheet. It is not including you. I mean, so,
In the average, and how are we getting the same?
because you have my spreadsheet,
Oh.
because I sent it to
Because
you.
we're- So,
I just discovered that and I was like, I clicked it and I'm like, oh, it's not including Greg. And then I thought the same thing, how is it
so I
not?
just have to add K2 to the formula.
Yeah. And then
He's
copy and
gonna
paste it.
bail and go enjoy the sunshine.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I think because last year we were down one person. And so I added an extra column and
Oh, yeah.
double check
Yeah.
my formulas. But I caught it before we finished.
That was
so
good.
Thankfully.
That was good.
So now the average on that one should be 16,583.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Next is the cottage tour. Asking 31,500. Last year they asked 35 and received 35 as their, what was it, 30th? No. 30th anniversary last year. Any questions on that one? No? Okay, okay.
I
Comment?
don't have the sheets of.
Yes. Oh, the new one. This
The new
was the
budget.
one they redid.
I can pull it up, but
Oh, it's okay, I'll pull it. I got it right here. Sorry. So Liz's update, what I noticed was there were, if the columns didn't match up, there were a few things that were in the History Museum budget that were line items over here that got shifted over to the TAF. And I left that one at home too, but, Jennifer, the difference for the cottage tour. I was trying to think, it was a couple of these, I think it was the posters and the distribution maybe that were over here. And then I think it was a bigger portion of the salary that went over. Cause
About
remember,
her changes.
yeah, her changes. I had it marked down, but I can't find it in my file. My apologies.
Let me see if I have that in the minutes.
Cause you sent out the second one. Oh, I've got it here. I can tell if I compare, sorry. I had it all nicely printed out too. Cottage tour.
Yeah.
Oh, here, that's why I couldn't find it. I wrote it on there. Okay, so the Coast Weekend advertising was supposed to be in the TAF funds, not in the History Museum. And some newsletter that was $300. So they basically shifted in market, publication about 900 over to the TAF funds. The posters, instead of 250 split, went 500 over to TAF. Distribution costs went from 300 to 500, all on TAF. And then the salary split, instead of 4,000 on TAF and 11,000 on the museum, was 11,259 on TAF and 3,741 on the museum.
But it still ended up 31.5, right?
Yes,
Okay.
the
that's what I
numbers
thought.
all ended up, but our columns weren't matching up. So I think she just bumped it over one column to the right. So those were the differentials on that. Any other questions on cottage tour? We'll start with you, Jackie.
31,500.
Tom?
Yeah, 31.5.
Okay, I'm 31.5. Julie?
25.
Drea?
31.5.
And Greg?
25. How do we come out with the same number, Julie?
I don't know. Because we're both thinking the same thing. September. September. That's what you're thinking.
That's one.
I know.
I mean, I love the History Center.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love this event.
No, I do too.
They're throwing an event, and our shoulder season is what we call it, I guess, but it's
Not slow.
not slow. It's the busiest time. I mean, it's super busy. And what really gets me on this one is we continue to go outside to specifically Sunset Magazine.
Yeah.
And every year, $5,000 to Sunset Magazine, 5,000, and I recall what they get from that, and they get some things, but does that really work? And I would like this year to see, and I would say this in the midterms and so forth, is utilize some of the local marketing that we have. So for example, this town will be full on that weekend.
Yep.
And so go to the hotels and the property management companies and have them put in their newsletters like, hey, you happen to have a reservation here, you know this is going on? And they'll do it for free
Yeah,
and save $5,000, that kind of thing. And I don't want to micromanage it,
yeah.
but this is what I used to tell, Elaine.
Elaine.
Oh, yeah.
Before, was that is kind of the rough one of this. All of the preparing for it and promoting and great.
Well, and so you know how I feel about the advertising part, because I was the hardest on them, and it was, before that, it was $8,000, remember?
Yeah.
They've gone down now on that, the amount that they're doing. But they did prove that many people said that they got them from the Sunset mailing and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
but that was how many years ago?
Yeah.
And they're still doing it, and they still get responses, and I get that, but it's like, you now have that mailing list.
Yeah,
So why don't we back way off on Sunset Magazine and just see what you can manage to do on your own, particularly since it's the second weekend in September.
yeah. And
We don't need one more person in here then.
and I use Sunset because it's the big 800-pound marketing gorilla,
Yeah.
but it is, you could also say the Oregonian. You
Yeah.
could also say
Seattle
Weekly or
Times,
Seattle
yeah.
Times.
Absolutely.
And marketing or advertising is difficult to know, and they did do a really good job. People like, how did you hear about us? But I think this is an event that would not suffer from making itself available to the people that are going to be here. Because once people are here, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Let's
Hey,
find
look.
things to do.
And it's great for you guys because you have something to tell them about that, hey, you're gonna be here, look at it. You could actually do this too.
And then, of course, the chamber's doing that just because it's an event going
Yeah,
on.
right.
And then there's a video that goes to it and so
Yeah.
forth. So I think there's just ways of something, especially, as established as this is, that has word of mouth, that has
Yeah.
been successful for 30 some odd years, it kind of comes back to that standing, or kind of being a little self-sufficient.
Yep.
So that's where I came in.
Okay.
It would be beneficial to hear these types of
Yeah.
discussions before because I don't have the same history that you guys have.
That's okay, but that's why we do this, and you can, believe me, lots of people have gone and conversed, and then it's like, you know what? I'm gonna go down on my number, I'm gonna go up on my number, so.
I'm gonna go down.
Okay.
Because I am agreeing that, this is here and it seems like basically if they've been using the same marketing strategy for 5 years or more, it's time to rethink their marketing strategy, no matter what it is. And I agree, it seems like local marketing would probably be pretty good. So they don't need to send $5,000 or $4,000 to Sunset Magazine or whatever it is. So I'm going to go down to 25.
Yeah, there's no rule that says you have to stick by your number after
Okay.
you did converse.
Okay.
Believe me, we've both gone up and down
Yeah,
on both,
Because
so.
you guys are, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
It just makes an awful lot of sense. Yeah.
And see, I was looking at as a $3,500 reduction from the
Right,
year
from the
before,
ask,
so I was
yes.
like, okay.
Well, and they
But
did
then
cut
they
out
had
those
a bigger
advertising,
event.
Which I give them
Yeah,
props
I
for.
appreciate that.
I
Yeah.
really appreciate
By
that.
the way, do they get the benefit of our comments?
You can
If
watch it.
they watch it,
They can watch it.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a public meeting, so
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if some of them are not.
and a
watching
lot of them do, I mean, just
Yeah.
from,
Yeah.
know,
Or watch it later.
yeah. Um,
Okay,
okay,
now it gets fun.
now it gets fun.
Mm,
Coaster. Now, I have one question, because then we got an email saying they revised their request from 66,000 to 57,000.
They did that during the meeting.
You did in the meeting.
Oh.
I had a note here too. I was gonna ask
Yeah.
that same
Yeah.
question. I thought they were asking.
That's
for
right.
57.
Thank you.
I just.
I
updated
did
the
mark it
spreadsheet.
here, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, you updated the spread, okay.
Yeah, I was about to
Gotcha.
hit send and then I remembered.
Okay. So, and then last year they asked for 40,400 and received 38,650. I know that they did the big Pink Martini event, which is
that last
typically,
year?
was that last year? Wasn't Pink
I
Martini
thought
last
Martini
year?
was 2 years ago.
Well, maybe you might be right. It's all a blur.
I know, it is all a blur.
Sorry, that would make
No,
sense
it's
to the
okay.
56,000.
Oh,
So, yeah,
God.
But kind of back to the scenario with the videos too, they can't really plan an event until they know the funding, so we've got some voids without names for events.
And that always happens.
And it always happens.
Always happens.
I was going to ask you, Jennifer, like, okay, they were they spent 18. They spent ask grant, never mind. They asked 40,400 last year, received 38,650. So I'm looking at the disparity between the two numbers going. I can't remember in our interview process because I didn't compare it necessarily to the year before. But am I missing something as to why it's such a bigger ask? Because it didn't seem like there was a bigger event.
Seemed like they were trying to get a bigger name for
A
their
bigger-
special event.
For the special events.
Because that's the 1 year we did approve a bunch. We did know it was gonna be Pink Martini because they had already.
Yeah,
gotten
they
them
had
on the
both,
date,
yeah,
which is why I'm thinking it was maybe a couple years ago. Because
Yeah.
I feel like I was here for that ask.
yes. Oh,
Um,
yeah, you were there.
yeah.
Never mind.
So they did not have, it sounded like they had some people in mind, but I think that's why it was more.
It looks like it's the early spring event that's the larger number.
Yeah,
Yeah.
19,000, I
Yeah.
see.
So again,
Oh,
if
additional, okay.
they don't spend it.
I think it
comes
was
back.
because they were going for an additional event. I have that written down here.
Hmm.
Yeah, the late spring. So instead of the
Which
3
makes sense,
concerts,
given
they
when we
had
do
4.
It makes sense given when we do our funding, you can't, they would have to book Pink Martini, they're out about
Yeah.
a year at least, so. Okay,
Hmm.
Well, I will say that because they have an indoor space, it is an opportunity to have more people on off-season stuff. You know, I mean, because they're not weather dependent at all.
Mhm.
So I do like that and, you know, but the question is when they're doing something late spring, how late in spring?
Yeah. Yeah.
My issue is always more of the advertising. They do a lot of advertising
Yeah.
and I'm just,
Yeah, and I
I'm
will
not sure
say-
how much that's paying off. They seem to think it's paying off, but I don't ever really see them saying that they know that it paid off. I think their ticketing says, how did you hear about it? Maybe. Can't remember, but
Well, and they say they put stuff in the
The Broadway
Across America, but I've never seen it. And
in the playbills,
in the playbills, I've never seen it. I've never noticed it.
that's disturbing.
No, and I glance through them. I'm not like, I don't read every thing, but I don't know that I've ever noticed
It's a
it.
half-page ad.
I know, and have you noticed it?
Seems like maybe in the past, but not as much recently.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't seen it.
I think I may have seen something in the Lion King.
Oh, okay.
Cause I think we went and saw the Lion King
Mhm,
and I
mhm.
thought, I remember being like, oh, look, there's Coaster.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
I mean, now
yeah.
I'm not like necessarily looking for it as
Yeah.
I'm new on this board, so like I
Yeah.
never really thought about it, but
Well, and I never thought about it.
I don't really look at the.
Yeah.
That's necessarily,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know. That's just my experience.
Okay.
I'm sure the people who sell ads love to hear that you never.
I know.
Uh-huh.
I mean, like, something
Keeps them awake
really
at night.
jumps out to me, but I haven't really noticed. I don't know.
Okay. Well, any other more questions or discussions on that?
Just the numbers.
Okay. Jackie, do you want to start?
I guess I'd say 50,000.
Okay, Tom?
Yeah, that's the number I had in mind, 50. Even.
Okay. I had 53 written down.
40.
Drea?
They're asking 57. I will
Yeah.
probably just fund 57. I love the theater, so.
Okay. Greg?
And I went 45. And my reasoning, just, no one's asking, but I'm telling. Is, the same thing. I'm just big on I mean, the Coaster Theater and probably a couple of the art and gallery groups are quintessentially what this is
Mhm.
designed for, and I think, you know, and the key it is a cornerstone of this community. But changing the marketing program, focusing on people that are here, because it used to be, and I'm not a marketing guy for the theater. I have no idea. Maybe it doesn't work this way, but you have on any given weekend in the winter, 15,000 people here coming on a weekend. And so focus on how you get those people that are already here rather than trying to pluck one or two that are coming. And I think that changes on your marketing. And so that's what I would communicate to them is, you know, some more of that localized marketing rather than big, high dollar ad thing that you can't really.
Figure
Now
out
I
what
go
works.
to the actors and actresses going down the sidewalk in full costume causing, you know, what's
Yeah.
going on?
Well, I mean-
That's where,
And like in the wintertime.
It's a perfect thing for the winter. It's
Yeah.
inside.
yeah.
Exactly, and like I don't know, when they used to carol in the Dickens Carol, and there was always a winter, and there still is,
Mhm.
but, you know, back then, there was, people weren't in town as much.
Mhm.
Now.
People are in
there's A
town.
little more in town.
Yeah.
And so to say, hey, we just gave $20,000 to Playbill or whatever, the marketing of
Yeah.
America. It wasn't that much, I just thrown a number out.
Yeah.
I just, in a lot of these, you're gonna keep hearing this theme is think of other ways to do it because things have changed a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think the counter that might come up to that is that, you know, one of the things we ask in the application is, you know, how many people you bring in.
Town.
Yeah,
Yes.
town. Yeah,
You know, and.
So if they're
you know,
not
and-
bringing
And we talk
people
about
in,
heads
we're
and
just-
beds and that
yeah.
sort of thing, and now we're sitting here saying, no, we want you to market to the people who are already here. As opposed to bringing people in, and, you know, so they're sitting there thinking, well, wait a minute, you know, in the application, they're asking us to bring people in.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, that's-
I would go the other way, so I'm just, you know, how do we balance that message?
And that's a tough one, cause then I go, okay, that might be your first time going to a show, but then you go and you look, oh, here's the calendar, whatnot. Yeah, we loved it so much here. Maybe we're back for the second or the third show of the season.
Right.
And,
Again, hard to quantify
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
that number is.
and I think it's important for, different groups here, different, like, you know, that they're all cross-marketing to people, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, the coaster should have their own list of people that they should be marketing to, but also the galleries have lists of people that, you know, they may say, hey, come see our gallery production. Also, coaster's having a, you know,
That's exactly
production.
what I'm referring to.
Yeah, because those may be people out of town, but they're people that are interested in canon.
And I think
Yeah.
just making it up, if Coaster went to the gallery, and I think they do to some extent, but it
Mhm.
doesn't really happen, like, hey, you know, we have Big Martini in town, can you let your people know about it?
Yeah,
And maybe they'll come see our show, but they'll buy some art at your gallery,
right,
and a lot more of that rather than just buying print ads.
right.
And, but I do agree, I mean, we are asking to do the heads and beds,
Yeah.
and I think, especially on the onset of the shoulder season where it's spring break-ish and September-ish
Yeah.
and so forth. I mean, the coaster, the nice thing about it is that they're talking dead of winter sometimes,
Oh, yeah.
and that's the hardest.
Yeah.
But, you know, you can go out and look at that occupancy in town is 75% in mid-March. So the people are here.
Yeah.
And yes, we want to bring that other 25% in, but
Yeah,
we
yeah.
gotta be creative to do it.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Especially when it's a year after year after year
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
That's where my head is.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, what was our final number on that one?
49,167.
Okay, and on to spring unveiling. Okay.
Leah's recusing herself from this one
Yeah,
and stormy weather. Okay,
okay,
all right.
sorry. Spring unveiling. Did anyone have any questions on this one? They are requesting 11,300. They were funded 10,721 last.
Do we know what they asked for last year?
Yes. 10,721.
Okay.
So, we feel comfortable on taking a vote on this?
What's your
I
number?
am,
Okay, Jackie.
I'll do the 11,300.
Tom,
Yeah, 11,300.
I will say 11,300 as well.
I did 11,300.
Drea?
She's.
Oh, you're recused. Never mind.
does that mean they're automatically down to zero?
No, we just don't.
We just,
We divide it by
just
six.
one less.
Yeah, one
Right,
less.
one less, yeah.
I just put an X there.
Yeah.
And then it just divides it by the 2, 4, 5 instead of 6.
Oh,
Yeah.
5 instead of 6, okay.
actually works on
Yeah,
Ooh, I learned something new.
it. Okay, I was also 11,300.
yeah.
Okay.
Easy one.
Not a top one to average.
No. No. Okay, on to stormy weather. The ask was 8,000. Last year they requested 7,500, received 7,500. Does anyone have questions on stormy weather? Jackie?
No, I don't think.
Okay. Your amount,
I'll say 8,000.
Tom?
8,000.
I will say 8,000.
8,000?
Oh.
Drea's out of that one too. Greg?
8,000.
Okay.
And I will add the comment, if no one's familiar with this, the last week in October, the room rate in Cannon Beach, the average room rate drops from summer, I always say October 15th, but it drops tremendously for that last 2 weeks. And then the first week in November, it goes back up to September rate, values, which proves to me that stormy weather is doing its job.
Yep, it is doing its job.
The demand.
And it doesn't matter what the weather's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I.
Power out, sideways rain, they're here.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
It creates the demand, and that's people out shopping and doing things.
Okay, thank you. And now on to Gallery Group year-round marketing. They are requesting 12,000. Last year, they asked for 16,000, received 16,000. Any questions on this one? Okay, Jackie?
I'm a little torn on this one. I'm gonna say 10,000.
Okay. Tom?
Yeah, I've got a hard time with this one, just know where to go with it. I think I'll go with 10,000.
I'm gonna go with 12.
I did 8,000.
I did 12.
Oh, sorry. 8, 12. Okay.
So great, you have the average of 10.4.
10-4.
10-4.
Perfect.
All right.
10-4, buddy. Okay, Brea, you're back on the clock
Back.
with Coast Walk Oregon. The ask is 10,000. They were not on last year, but because their segment didn't come through town, that 22, 23, they asked for 10,000, we're given 10,000. And any questions or discussions on that? Even though I
Great
did have to
program.
cut her a little short, unfortunately. Okay, Jackie, you have any,
I'm gonna say 10,000.
tell me?
Yeah, 10,000. I mean, the way that they've got their things set up, it seems like it's gonna be a real positive for the community, so.
Yeah,
It's a great program.
I will say 10,000 as well.
I did 10.
Drea?
10,000.
10,000.
Woo-hoo.
So I just want to tell you guys, this has nothing to do with that, like the number, but they are so amazing. They met with city staff months ago to talk about like the route and the flags and, these are the kind of things we want to do. Can we do it? Like most people don't do it that quickly
Yeah.
and that early. And they talked about signage and how they're going to do pickups and drop offs. And it was really impressive.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
Well, this is their third trip around this,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
they're old hats at it now.
And really, for the amount that they're asking, it seems like it's a pretty good deal for them.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're done by noon, and all these people are gonna be wandering around for 3 days. I mean, that's a no-brainer to me.
This is a-
Absolutely our target
Mhm.
market. These are people who care about the
Yeah.
environment, that, don't leave trash on the beach.
Yeah.
They got disposable income. I mean, it's all good.
Well, after listening to them, we're like, we want to go.
Yeah.
I know.
That's a great program.
Pretty cool.
Okay,
Oh, boy.
sea turtles forever.
Well, I'm a 0 on this one. I can't go to
Yeah.
city council and say, let's give them money for summer. And I thought you giving them or us giving them, I can't remember who brought it up about doing it in the winter. Maybe it was me. I don't remember. I don't have a brain anymore. They need to have a plan
Mhm.
for how to do that before we give them a bunch of money to develop it. Because as you said, you're gonna have to be nimble in the winter, because I get that they can't do it in sideways rain. I'm not sure how nimble their volunteer groups can be in the winter. You've watched them do this. Have you watched what they take off the beach? I have heard concerns of there's a lot of wood and grass and not necessarily microplastics.
Yeah, I mean, in full disclosure, I own one of these screens.
Yeah.
And because I thought they were pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you do, you pick up whatever you filter through it, it's gonna pick up little wood debris and stuff.
Sure.
You know, I know some bird probably uses those for habitat and stuff, but to me, like a bunch of little twigs aren't the problem.
Mhm. Oh, no,
It's
yeah.
plastic. But yes, they do. And they have had concerns, you know, I know there was a concern voiced at one time that around Whale Park, they had bags and bags of plastic. And yes, there was some debris and some other things, but when you see how much plastic is there, I mean, it would be almost, in my mind, it would be impossible to screen out every little thing. And then they do the super site up on Fort Stevens, which is tons of plastic up by Peter Iredale-ish area.
Yeah.
And I personally have not been involved in that one, but in a full disclosure, I know more because my kid's on his little leagues team and stuff like that. But, you know, when you see truckloads of plastic going away, and, you know, I know Solve does beach cleanups and other good programs like that, but this is really the stuff that's embedded in the sand. So now I'm rambling on, but to your question is, yeah, I mean, I know that was a concern for some people,
Okay,
but I don't think they're in there like scooping up grass and throwing it in a bin.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the idea. I can't go to city council with a straight face and say we should fund anything that's June to September. I just can't. So that's more what I'm thinking. And now that he's been given the idea of, can you figure out a way to do it in the winter? And can there be a way to do it as an event where it's like, I don't know, 3 times in the winter or even 1 time in the winter, we could help fund one of those. I would be more amenable to that. He's gonna have to show us, people will stay the night, not just drive down and go home. That's my feeling, but I can't in good conscience fund it this year with the presentation that we saw. Just my 2 cents on that one. I love the idea.
We're up at 4 cents.
I don't think that's gonna help him.
No,
Actually,
your 2 cents worth, and my 2 cents worth, comes out to the same
There we
place.
go.
Yeah,
I got you.
I agree. I can't fund anything.
Ashley, did you have comment? I didn't know. Or Drea? I thought I heard something,
Oh,
but
I was just saying that I saw a video of them doing it, and I think it's a really amazing what they're doing, that program. All those microplastics are the type of things that birds are eating, and you know, that is killing some of our birds. You know, we have like the puffins and stuff, and I think it's not without its advantage to have that be sort of something that we're doing here, especially with our love for the sea creatures and everything. I get that the summer may not be the most ideal time to try to draw tourists in based on what we're trying to go for here. So, but yeah, anyway, that was all I was gonna say, was just to add that it seems beneficial to the environment and then I guess if we care the image of our town, but that is all.
Wonder if he could get some money through the state, since the beach is state.
He does that.
Does he
He
do
goes
that?
through it. Yeah, he asks for funds and other resources. He doesn't always get them, but he does ask.
Mhm. Okay.
He met with council a couple times and has been to budget committee and they've grilled him pretty hard about other places that he gets money from.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay.
so I guess what I'm hearing is
This is
hesitancy
the
to,
TAC
to
committee,
give, yeah.
not the clean up the beach.
I just don't think that this fund is the appropriate
I
place
agree.
to be funding
Right.
it. There's other places that should be funding him, not us.
Well, and the reason he came to us is because of the quote unquote events that he does, but unfortunately, those events happen in the smack dab in the summer.
Yeah.
So. So that part makes me go, I can't stand,
No, I agree with you on that.
traffic today is just like, I can't bring one more person into this town in July. With city money, like, no.
Right.
So,
So the direction would to be either to go back and reformat with a more winter type focus with event specific
yep, for next year.
data.
Because-
Accounting,
Because he hadn't been thinking about it like an
Yeah.
event, then he wasn't paying attention to what his volunteers were doing. So
yeah,
if he were to come back with us and say, well, in the summer, here's what they did, like, where are those people staying? Like, do they plan ahead for the, they were saying, he's talking about all these people coming down in July. It's like, do they stay here? And when did they get their reservation? You know, last year?
Yeah.
July? So that's what I would say to him is,
okay,
you have to make it tourist related and then use the data you're gonna get from here on out, even if it's in the summer. To show us your volunteers will spend the night. Or, at least shop or whatever, I don't know, but
Yeah.
that's what I would say to him.
okay.
And this, like, when we talk about feedback, is it all for next year? Or if we say, hey, here's our feedback, can you swizzle it back and forth and
I don't know.
I guess, Ashley, can we send a letter to Sea Turtles saying we're not gonna fund you, but this is what we think you should do in the future? We-
Absolutely. Give them
Okay.
feedback. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, and I don't know if he's watching, but there's feedback right there. I thought you were gonna say, well, we'll give you $2,000 this year to go and make a plan for next year.
well, that's kind of what I'm
Is that what
saying.
you're
That's
thinking?
kind of what I'm thinking is, because I was ready to go somewhere in the 20,000 range. And the reason I'm for that is I can't get it out of my head because I've seen it in other
Mhm.
areas where Columbia Sportswear and Nike come to Cannon Beach and they
Mhm.
each have a team and they're competing to who can do the most beach cleanup. And it just gets marketed and
Mhm.
everyone knows, and people know that Cannon Beach cares
Mhm.
and the city funded it and, it's a good thing,
Mhm.
and we're saving beach, plastic, wildlife, all the stuff.
That's all.
And so I like kind of where they're going, but they've coming from roots of just getting volunteers to get it done
Yeah,
and because of a passion of cleaning beaches.
yeah.
And so, if I try to spin it to make it palatable to TAC and OSR 320 kind of rules,
Mhm.
that type of thing. And if the people from Nike and I just use those as examples,
yeah,
but he had some examples,
Mhm.
larger companies that he brings in. If they stay here or not, personally, I don't really care, but if the people who see that they're coming to do this kind of thing and they're seeing that Cannon Beach has a cleaner beach than the next city or cares about the environment, then that to me is worth the money. And
Then it's about the publicity that you're
it's
talking
the market,
about.
yeah, that's the market, then that comes on the marketing side. So that's where my head is. But smack dab in the middle of summer, not the best time, which is why I asked him, like, you gotta be nimble, you gotta, my thing would be that late fall kind of timeframe. But
Or even like early May or late April,
Yeah, the spring,
or,
then-
Even if he could, it would be amazing if he could say like, oh, look, the weather for this week is gonna be great until, Saturday. Let's have a thing Friday, Saturday and call everybody on the Sunday before and say, hey, we're doing one.
we're gonna pop up cleanup,
Yeah, pop-up cleanup. Yeah,
that kind of thing.
yeah, kind of
And so
thing.
if there was money going towards like, hey, get that planning going. I don't know who's behind it. I know Mark and I know Ed Johnson, but I don't know
Me.
anybody really, who's doing that kind of stuff. And kind of like we did for the Galucci Creek. The very first time they got money
Yeah,
was to help with their planning,
That's true.
so they
Yep.
could have a good plan.
Yeah.
And then And I don't know that they've come back for money since. I don't think so.
They haven't, no.
But it's been wildly successful and
Yep.
it's grown and so forth. So that's kind of where my head was with it is. As presented, yeah, there's a lot of loopholes, or a lot of negative, things. Which is why I said, if we either gave them something or said, hey, represent some way. But I don't know if that's a timing thing or a next year thing.
I'd be willing to give them, to do some money if the feedback to him was, has to be an event, right? Because we have to make sure that it passes the state muster. And then I would encourage him to go spring, so he's got enough time to put that into effect. And then come back with data from there. I'd be willing to reconsider it for all the reasons you said. I mean, I do want people to stay overnight, but in addition, you're right, the PR possibilities. And I don't know if he's capable of doing the PR. I don't know him at all. He looks like a contractor dude who probably doesn't understand the PR world. But if there's somebody that could help him do that part, because the PR is amazing.
Yeah, it's a good story,
Mhm.
Well, almost like a trial synopsis, like, I don't know what we could look through his funding amount, but say, here's this amount to build
Mhm.
a template for one event, late spring, whatever. I think the corporate angle, obviously, I would think the big, it's, Nike, Intel, whatever versus, and Banks kids are great, but do we think the adults should have more heads in beds? Probably than, a drive down from Banks. It takes everyone. I'm not discounting that, but
Mhm.
in a trial scenario,
I mean, I would encourage him to do late spring, but frankly, it's like if we would say, here's this money, here's our thoughts. And if you decide to pull something together in mid-October, that's fine. That's our thoughts.
Yeah.
You decide what you can do with that if we want to try to see if we could pull off one event, because to me, it's interesting. If it's one event and it works, and he can work out some of the technology to be able to do it if it's raining. Like, to me, that seems like that's worth seeding. And it could be a bigger thing if he can get the technology to work, it seems to me
Yeah.
like that would be kind of cool. I don't know.
so I guess my question is if that's the case and we decide we wanna seed a trial, do we have to come up with a dollar figure right now to do that, or do we go back to him?
He
Or
doesn't use it, the money comes
it comes
to
back
us.
anyway.
You don't have
That's
to
true.
worry about it going down a black hole. This is what we did with the comedy festival, remember?
Yeah, that's true.
They asked for however
Yeah.
much they asked for, and it was like, no.
Yeah.
That's true.
15 grand or something, and oh, yep.
Yeah, so if we're talking about, funding seed money, I do think we are going to need some more information from them and a commitment of how that's going to be used. It's a little bit, again, back to the statute. Is it money that is going to advertising, publicizing or distributing information for the purpose of attracting or welcoming tourists, or marketing special events, festivals designed to attract tourists? So I think we would need like an additional application essentially from him about how he's going to use the seed money towards those purposes.
And if we were to direct him to make it an event, so we're sure that it passes the state law hurdle, would that be okay? You'd still want him to put together another whole presentation for us to make sure.
That would be my advice. Like, we could go back to him and say, like, here's what we could fund. Like, could you apply, directed towards these? And then, if it meets this, we have set aside X amount of dollars.
How do you do that with city council's meeting in early July?
I would defer to Ashley, but I think we could go forward with everything else and then have a footnote that says, we have asked, for this, and then we could probably proceed with everything else and then come back
Okay.
with his.
Because it's not like they are unfamiliar with him.
Right.
He's been before city council many times. They know what he does.
Yeah.
Okay,
If you agree with that, Ashley, we can proceed with everything else and then still come back with a second recommendation for him,
Right.
where to have the money. And that gives him time to come up with a plan.
Yeah. okay.
Yeah, and
And
that way
that-
we're not just sort of like giving him $2,000 without, or however much we're thinking, and without having sort of a commitment. about how that's going to be used. So that would be my, and the rest of the paperwork that goes with
Okay.
one of these grants.
So I'm uncomfortable with all of this.
Oh, okay.
You know, and Greg, you might know more about what he does and what he doesn't do, but, you know, I would really like to see an independent audit of his results. And I mean, I'd like to see for sure that what he is pulling off the beach would otherwise not come off the beach. You know, that this really is a huge quantity or significant quantity of microplastics that are so fine that they wouldn't come off the beach any other way. And that, you know, you talk about truckloads of plastic, well, they truckloads of plastic bottles that, you know, Pam and Karen pick up as much in a year as anybody else when they're walking up and down the beach. I mean, you know, I just don't know. And I know what he says, and that's fine, but I would really, before I started funding him, I really want to know that this does what he says it does. You know, one of the parts of it that just from a logical standpoint, if this works so well, why is he only doing it here and, you know, basically on the North Oregon coast? I mean, this sounds like it's a problem on beaches around the world and something that he could patent and sell the process or license the process and have it a heck of a lot more effective. So I mean, that's just a logical thing that makes me question, you know, I just want to know if this thing's really doing what it's supposed to do, which
So-
is a much more fundamental question than whether you're bringing a group of people in or not,
Absolutely.
you know.
What if we, I don't know how you put that in, because our mission is to bring people to town.
Right.
But I understand your concern. Can you make that as part of the follow-up for after we do it? So in other words, he's bringing people to town. He's saying he's pulling off these microplastics. And your concern is we would like to see an audit of how does that happen and what is the real weight and everything.
Yeah, what's
Because-
gonna happen is, and then the other thing is, I mean, his comment when he was here was that this plastic is here at a certain time of year. And it accumulates, and I think one of his comments was that there's certain months that he could go out there and do this, but it's not gonna be effective because there's nothing there to pick up. This just washes in the winter months,
Mhm.
and that's why he wants to pick it up in the summer months.
Right.
So even if he were to put together an event
Mhm.
that was in these shoulder seasons, is it going to accomplish anything?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I see your concern.
Yeah, so that's why, yeah, I really think that we're just not the right place. I mean, if he's actually doing it, that's great. But I think if he's actually doing that, he should be getting some pretty significant state funding and county funding and as well as city funding and not Arts Commission
And
funding.
not events. I see your point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
That's just the way I feel about it. So I'm still at 0.
No, it makes sense. I will, and I don't know the details of this, but I have been told by Mark in conversations that he has been, you know, flown down to Southern California to meet with, I want to say it was Long Beach, maybe it was Huntington Beach. And they, you know, have been utilizing his screens and things like that. You would think it would, if it was the end all be all, it would be patented and everywhere. I don't know anything other than that about it.
Mhm.
And I agree. I mean, I don't know how many years that they were getting money through the grant program in town.
I can pull that out.
It was a couple
of years.
Couple years in a row.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's some large environmental organizations. I mean, I would think the Sierra Club would just jump all over something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
But as I know, this organization is a couple man operation. It's not
Yeah.
organized in that, you know, and they're local here.
Yeah.
It's here. So, you know, but I agree with you that, you know, it's not a fit for this in terms of letter of what we do.
Mhm.
But if you massage it, you can have, you know, promotion of either an event or a good story that
Mhm.
brings people to town. So that's where I see it from.
So he received funding from community grants for several years prior,
Yeah,
but
just a
isn't
couple.
now.
Well, so what happened was he had received from community grants for several years and then, I think like 2 or 3 years, maybe.
Yeah. that's-
And then it was discussed with him, like, hey, maybe you should try to be a line item. And so they went to council and said, hey, what do you think about this being a line item? So council did fund him 1 year as a line item. And then after that, there was some question like, should this really be a line item or not? So there was a bit of back and forth. And the council has made a decision that these kind of programs should be a grant. We actually did some research. We talked to our auditor, we talked to legal counsel, some other places, what other cities do. And most of them, things like that go through a grant process because it's more of a community program, not a line item to run the city. So we told him to go for grants. The city did increase the community grant number this year. And then during one of the meetings, it was also suggested you could potentially qualify for TAC if you could make this into an event.
Yeah.
You know, trying to give him other
Mhm.
options. And that was his.
Was he funded this year?
A community grants.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm trying to, I'm thinking, let me see if he's on this list that I pulled up. I was trying to pull one up.
Yeah.
I believe the recommendation for him was, oh, you know what? I just did the packet today, $9,642. Let me look and see if that is correct, because I put the packet out today for council. And it has sorry, I'm not used to having a laptop, so everything is so small. As I get older, it gets, yeah. And I got two different pairs of glasses that I put back.
These are doing great on the top of my head.
Yeah, so, let me go down to this page. Down here.
It's disconcerting when you hear these young kids talk about getting older.
Gosh.
Oh, my bifocals in there, right? Okay, so Sea Turtles asked for $10,000. The community grants are recommending $9,642. So he is gonna receive some money from community grants.
Is there any conflict with going to different?
No,
Okay,
actually, several of these people do get both grants. I
Okay.
believe the History Center, I think, gets a community
Yeah.
grant. Toledo Arts Colony
Okay.
does.
Yeah.
One of the questions that I think, I know is in theirs, I think might be in ours, is what other grant fundings do you get?
okay,
So, yeah.
okay.
Well, what are the numbers? And then let's see what we do from there.
Yeah, like what would that look like?
Okay, so I want to start with Jack.
Can I just say real quick, that if anyone just looking at his website, Sea Turtles Forever, you can see that he's picking up really tiny pieces of plastic, which are pretty devastating to ocean wildlife. And I can see that they're utilizing his technique in places as far away as like Australia. So I don't think he's, just walking in with a technique that doesn't work asking for money. Not that, I mean, if we're focusing on him creating some kind of event, if we, like you said, massaged it into being an event that brought tourism in, but also, was a good look for Cannon Beach as we're cleaning up the beach. I mean, I think that everyone should look at his website if they have any questions about his methods, because it's actually a pretty clean looking website. It looks pretty good. And that's all. That's what I was just wanted to point that out.
You have somebody doing the website for him? Or is he a technical guy?
I'm sure they have somebody.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, one of the things we can do, because we are getting close to 5, is we could, because we're not gonna be able to get through midterms today.
Yeah.
We can look and schedule another meeting where we can further discuss Sea Turtles and how you want to handle that and proceed with everything else. When I go through the midterms.
Okay,
Okay,
If that's,
yep, that
'Cause then-
sounds like
okay.
thanks, okay,
makes a plan.
okay.
Okay, Comedy Fest.
No, we haven't got our
Oh.
numbers.
Oh.
Well, do you want to do numbers? or you
Well,
want
I'd like to know where everybody's
Okay.
cashed out. I
Okay.
mean,
Oh,
Tom's still at 0.
to-
I don't know where I am.
just don't know. I mean, I don't know what he would need. I mean, I just don't think there's any way to put a number on it until we have more information from him, is my thought, so I personally would say he should come back next year when he has a better idea. I'd be 0. Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
I mean, I'm sitting here looking at it going, okay, labor wise, he's talking about 50 days. If we're talking about a trial 3-day, whatever, then, are we dividing that and it's, 1/16 of the 30, of the 33,000, and then how do you break up the equipment and professional, that's how I would randomly come up kind of with what I would perceive as an estimate.
So you would fund him at some point, at some level.
I mean, yeah, well,
For this year?
oh no.
Greg, would you fund him at this year? Given everything that's been said?
I would fund him with the caveat that I know and I hear what he presented and all this.
Mm-hmm.
If it was more to be used to get a plan together
Mhm.
and to market and create a story around what you're doing, then if that, to me, that would be worth 15 grand or something like that. If you had, and I did not know that they had 9842
Right,
from the
right.
community grant.
Right.
So what does it take to do that? I don't exactly know, but if what came out of it was we did a beach cleanup, we got a bunch of stuff off the beach, and a story was created that was used to market what can be done, and that is what you come back next year with and ask for more, then that's where I would be comfortable giving seed money. To me, it feels very much like the Fluchie Creek thing.
Right.
In a way. But it wouldn't be the full amount. It would,
Right.
So.
And what would Drea's number be? Or how is Drea thinking about it?
I'm kind of thinking in the same terms, like that it could be a seed money idea. And have him come up with some sort of like 3-day event, maybe like October, because he was saying the sand needs to be dry, right? So they can get down there and get those small plastic bits or whatever. And then have him come back with like a little plan for that. And it's my understanding that if the money isn't used, it comes back. So it feels kind of like a safe bet. It just seems like a very cool idea. And if it worked and could grow into something more than that, that would be amazing. Those are my thoughts.
See, I'm just sitting here, I mean, kind of makeshifting up something math wise, dividing by what, now, does that really mean it's a real program or not? I mean, I kind of feel like
It
I'm
just feels-
throwing
Yeah,
numbers to the wind. I don't know.
it,
Because I would still be zero, but give him that feedback that it has to be something that can be made into an event. Ish. Yeah.
I mean,
Man, that's a tough one.
You said we could footnote it. Can we go back to him and say, we'd like you to come up with a new application with a budget for a 1-day shoulder season event as a trial?
And the worst thing that happens is he doesn't, or he doesn't, and we still have plenty of money.
Yeah, so the money's there. We can proceed with everything else and let council know when we make the recommendation that we're still working on the Sea Turtles one. And that we plan on bringing a proposal. We could be bringing a proposal at a later date, just an FYI. And then you guys can still meet. We can ask him for information, work things with him.
And then we can make a vote. I mean, if he comes back and the data is not,
Yeah.
Right.
bulletproof, then you're like,
You can still say no,
yeah, maybe that, then we can research more into. I mean, it might take 1 year of something to
You should
be,
Find out when he's doing one and go and do it yourself. Go and look at it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cause I mean, I'm kind of interested in watching it too, so it's
Yeah.
not down by us, right? So I've never seen
Yeah.
it doing it.
Getting all the plastic. would be
Yeah,
fine.
oh, no, but I understand.
And I fully understand that, you know, the
Yeah.
animals are eating this micro stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's causing problems all the way down the system. I mean, eventually we
Yeah.
did,
Yeah,
so.
no, I'm,
So. I
we
get that.
all get, we all
I'm
know
all
the
in favor of
goodness of
getting
it.
rid
Oh,
of-
totally.
Yes,
I'm
You
not
just
opposed to
want
that.
tangible, I mean,
I'm just,
Yeah.
I'm just,
you're doing.
I'm just looking at it and saying, this budget is for events,
Yeah,
mhm,
you know, that, you know, bring tourism,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
this budget is also to support the arts in here, and I just don't see that this is doing that.
that,
And so it's just, I'd love to see them get funding from other places that are more appropriate.
My counter to that would be, and I hear what you're saying, is as a community, and maybe this is because where I hang out and get my information, but Cannon Beach has a real black eye right now on not having mobile wheelchairs available. We did, we let them rot and they didn't fall, we couldn't organize it, and it's not a program anymore. Manzanita's doing a great job, Rockaway's doing a great job. Other cities are doing
other smaller cities.
are doing a great job. Moby mats, while I'm not a huge fan of how they look, they are great for accessibility and do things. And, you know, we don't have a plan for that, and other communities are doing that. And I think the cleaning of the beaches, and being a pristine beach and so forth, there's a messaging in that. And there's a messaging that we care about the environment and so forth. So to me, I know it's not an event at all, and it doesn't do the arts at all, but it promotes Cannon Beach, which is about the arts and so forth. And it will have someone sitting wherever they're sitting and they see it on the news and like, oh, that's the places they're making an effort to clean up and do that. You're never gonna win. I mean, I like to think someday we will.
Yeah,
But
Right.
the more plaques is gonna come next year. And so this is a way to kind of say that as a community, we're doing this. And if it's not this committee, was the grant committee, it was this, you know, we're sitting on a huge surplus.
yeah.
So to me, it's worth throwing a little bit if it was done right. If it's just like, well, we're gonna only hold it in July, then no, I don't wanna fund it.
and what kind of volunteers would you, you know, back to the data, heads and beds, you know? If you do have these people, what percentage do you project?
Mhm.
And then you ask for data collection on that.
So I think it's worth asking him to come back with we're not gonna fund your entire 50 days, blah, 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 we're not doing anything in the summer. And essentially give him all the feedback we just said here and say, we're willing to hold a spot for you, but we need to have a different application. It still has to be massaged to make sure that it meets the state. The state law, and then see what he does with it. And he may or may not come back, I don't know.
I mean, if I was helping him with it, and I'm
Mhm.
not, but, you know, here's X amount of dollars to get your people on the beach, but here is a chunk of change to get a professional marketing person to get the news crews out here and get the spin on it and get it picked up on the wire. And I don't know what that amount
Well,
is.
you may not even need that if you work through the chamber.
Yeah, or have the
Sierra-
chamber really
Sierra could do that part.
do that kind of
so-
stuff, so you're not extra money per
Yeah,
se.
Yeah, that chamber video.
Yeah, make a chamber.
Probably would be a
Have
video.
the chamber make the video of what they're getting funded
There you
and
go.
partner with them in that, something like that,
Yeah.
because we're,
I get what you're
in
saying.
everything we do, we're throwing money out to events and we're hoping for the best. And I think the only way this one makes it is it tells a story.
Well, and to your comment about the accessibility, I was gonna say, so in addition to this, when we go doing the 10,000 foot level that Bruce is talking about, I think accessibility needs to be at the top of the list. I am, in my location, I am the one that gets the people who go to City Hall to ask about it on a Saturday. And we had the 7-year-old kid who's bawling in my shop because I have a ramp and I'm right there. Because I heard that those PR releases are still out there, so people come to town thinking that there's something for them to rent or to whatever, and it's like, and then the chamber says, well, we got a lady ready to write a check for a David's chair.
Mhm.
She's gonna write the check, she's gonna get one for us, then what do we do with it? So I was gonna say, if we were gonna start prioritizing, the public art and all the stuff, we gotta figure out the accessibility. I'm embarrassed. Gold Beach has a program.
Mhm.
Come on, we're Cannon Beach. So I'm just embarrassed.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah, no.
embarrassed.
I agree with you, 100%. That is a topic for that direction.
Yeah.
Discussion, absolutely.
And I still think the city sign is important too, although I'm not quite sure how to do that, but I mean, yes, accessibility, I think needs to be on the top of the list. And this is the kind of dollars that we can actually do something like that with.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Okay,
so rather than doing a number, is that the feedback we're gonna get? We're gonna get.
table
I
that
think we
one.
should table that one.
Yeah.
Let's proceed with the other
Okay.
ones. We can regroup. Because we can do this a couple different ways. We can ask them to come in and meet with them and we can have an open dialogue, or we can write them a letter. Like, it's really up to you guys, but we
Okay.
can figure out that.
Okay.
But let's get through the other
Okay,
three.
yeah,
real
yeah,
quick.
yeah. Sorry.
Okay,
Okay.
Comedy Festival asking 23,971 last year. They asked for 20,271. We're given 19,261. Any questions on Comedy Festival? If not, go ahead, Jackie.
23,971.
Tom,
23,971.
23,971. Julie,
21.
okay. Drea
23,971.
and Greg.
23,971.
I'm the hard ass. Oh, God, I'm the hard ass. Okay.
Okay, get lit at the beach.
I just know, I've gone to all 4 nights that they have done that thing, and every time, they ask people out of town, and you see
Mhm.
that at least 60% of the hands shoot up. And
Yeah.
at that time, and it's a fun event.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's just.
And I get a different demographic, I think, to a certain extent, and a different form of art, so.
Okay.
Get lit at the beach, asking for 40,000, asked for 40,000 last year, received 40,000 last year. Any questions on that? Okay, Jackie,
I'm 40,000.
Tom,
40.
I am 40, Julie,
40.
Drea,
40.
Hey, Greg, I'm curious what your number will be. We've had this.
Oh, yeah. I'll surprise you this year, I'm 40.
Oh.
Oh my God.
This one, I contradict a little bit, but it's a good time.
Yeah.
It's a good time of year,
Yeah,
and it's well done, and it does bring people to town.
Mhm.
Limited by what we have in terms of event space.
mhm,
But I think Tracy puts out, a good product and does that. And I've never had anything against the event.
I know.
I didn't analyze it to the extent of, I would have liked to see, advertising budgets cut a little bit. But, I think it's like some of like I mentioned with stormy weather, I think it doesn't drive the same amount as stormy weather does as an event. It's a little more expensive, but it's a good thing and it's right in the wheelhouse of people. A
And
good
when-
demographic we want.
It's a different demographic.
Yeah.
than
It is
others.
different?
Yeah.
That's really.
And when that school gets done, I think she's gonna be able to take full advantage of it.
Yeah.
That's for sure, because then we get bigger than the surf sand ballroom.
yeah,
You're out from under the heel of the surf sand people.
Yeah.
And, yeah,
and maybe won't have to your numbers so far in advance either. I mean,
Yeah. And that point is exactly, this is one that I just wanted to keep going
Yeah.
until we have a new facility.
yeah,
well, and if we were ever gonna pop more money, to me, it's like, she's staying in the Northwest for authors. If the one time when you could pop some money to bring in a name bigger than Terry Brooks, which is hard to do, because he's a pretty big name, he just happens to live here, but I mean, there's a lot of authors when you get to the Mississippi that maybe wouldn't be as expensive to bring in than East Coast, but maybe that's something that they could look at when we have the kind of room
Mhm,
to be
right.
able to
Yeah.
handle that kind of
Yeah.
capacity, so.
yeah,
Okay, sorry,
exactly. Nope, you're good.
okay.
Okay, Maker's Map, new one. Meets the criteria according to Ashley, requesting 5,600. And my only question is, and I do not know this. We don't have a printing facility anywhere close anymore, do we?
Laser
That-
print, laser printed.
I was just,
There's it's like Dragonfly or something.
okay,
I've had stuff printed there. They're pretty good.
pretty good, okay.
In town?
It's in Seaside.
Seaside.
Okay.
I mean, I just got to, the only reason that came up was I was looking at the budgeting stuff and I'm like, where's everyone printing stuff? And is everyone back to kind of local stuff? Is everyone paying for shipping? You know, I don't know where the dollars hash out between having it sent out to, you know, I've got wedding stuff on the brain, but like minted, printing stuff and
Yeah.
then sending it
Yeah.
back.
You're sending it up to Shutterfly.
Yeah. I don't know. That might be a topic to talk about in future years. Not that it needs to be a discussion for now, but that kind of.
And I don't know if that's any other charter, but I've definitely leaned that way, the shop local.
Mhm.
Do as
Yeah,
much as you can.
yeah. Any comments or questions beyond that? Okay, Jackie,
5,600.
Tom?
Yeah, I looked at that, I really like this idea, 5,600.
Okay, I was gonna say 5,600. Julie?
I was gonna say 3,000. I could maybe go up to 4. Oh, God. I don't know. So it's, my concern is that it will be out of date instantly almost with how stuff like this works in this town. That's.
Oh,
one of the
meaning
things that-
businesses come opening and shutting.
And that's the
hadn't
only
thought of
thing that bothers me about, yes, I remember when we did the city map and almost,
yeah.
2 months after it was out, there was businesses out, businesses in, blah, blah, blah. We had to. So, but I mean, I love the idea. I
Mhm.
do love the idea of it. So let me say 4,000.
Okay. Drea?
5,600.
Greg?
And I was also 5,600. I know if I was doing it, I'd have to ask for 28,000 because it would take me forever to do it. So.
5,600 seems
So-
pretty
so-
reasonable.
Seems like a bargain.
Yeah, so I mean, I tried to be like, whoa, how much does it cost? Does it cost? But there's a lot of artistic
Yeah.
thought and research going into it and stuff. And I never thought of your point of how quickly it becomes obsolete.
Mhm.
But if it's done properly, you should be able to omit things and do a reprint and
Absolutely.
things. And I got the feeling from the presentation that the idea was there and you could do those kind of things.
Yes, and there's a lot of passion behind it, that's for sure. It's
Yeah.
Michelle, I've watched, Michelle's been going around town trying to open her mind about what makers means.
Mhm.
And she was asking, hey, does anybody in your shop want to be listed? And it's like, whoa, we don't want people coming to ask us if we're gonna sew for them, because we're not. We get that enough already, so.
Well, and I guess the
But-
other line is, where does that maker's definition terminate? Because you could be very broad in it.
Yep.
Is it a multi-generational hotel?
Probably not. Probably not.
I don't know.
I don't think they mean making beds.
Something tangible.
Hey, it's an art form. I saw my grandmother.
I'd love to see a virtual version of
Well-
it.
Yeah.
I could change it real quickly and.
Or,
something
well,
like that.
what about, well, here I go down the rabbit hole,
And
because
then
you
could do
think
like a
about an
QR
app.
code,
Well, I almost go back to
We
an
have
app. I know.
For city. yeah.
I know.
And we have.
Oh,
an
we
app.
do- oh, we
have an
do?
app for the chamber.
I didn't know that. But I'm talking about obsolescence, if you had that, then someone, I'm thinking like Aaron
Yeah,
and
no,
Beach
the-
Soap moving across the street.
There
then,
could be a
you
way
know.
to integrate that into the app.
Well, I mean, she was back
She
behind.
was back behind.
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Oh, wait, yeah.
I mean, you could even do like little postcards with QR codes. Here's the map for, or here's the maker's map for Cannon Beach, and go on your phone and pull it up.
I mean, once it's done,
Yeah.
that could be put onto
Be
the
interesting.
Cannon Beach app in a red hot second. That's an easy one.
Yeah.
I
think
can
that'd
bring
be
that up to Sierra, and that's no
Yeah.
problem. In fact, we would love to have it. We're talking about expanding the app, actually, so.
good. I think the QR codes, exactly.
Yeah.
I was sitting there and sort of envisioning, you have a virtual one, and they walk into the information center at City Hall or at the chamber, and somebody just prints it out for them and hands it to them. But instead, you know, put a QR code, because everybody's.
Everyone's on their phones anyway.
So
That's-
they're always thinking
People.
about.
Yeah, there's a mix.
There
There's a
are
mix.
people
Yeah.
that will want the map.
Yes.
So that's still good, so,
Yeah.
okay.
Think of COVID restaurant menus.
Oh, my God, this might be an easy one. for
This-
us.
Okay.
this is one for me.
X-Ray FM requesting $35,000.
This
Any
one is
more
easy.
discussion between our discussion with Ashley and meeting criteria? Nope.
Big
Okay,
zero.
Jackie,
I'm a 0. I just don't think it works for us.
Tom,
0.
I'm a 0. Julie,
Zero.
Drea,
0.
Greg.
0. Can you figure out the average?
Yeah.
You got it.
Okay, so, we have, ask, now this is obviously not including sea turtles, that's just kind of sitting there. $247,559.
That's the ask, or that's what we said, just
Or
came
that's,
up with?
what we're recommending.
Okay,
Sorry,
gotcha.
not the ask.
Okay,
Thank you.
so that's funding. If we take out the 35,
247,559.
Did we get everything?
we did not,
Except TC turtles.
not X-ray or not sea turtles.
X-rays we got.
do-
It's just-
We got it.
Oh,
Did Cannon Beach Arts Association?
oh, no,
Oh,
no, we did.
Yeah, we did.
yeah.
We
That
did
was the
everybody.
first one.
That was the first
Okay,
one.
sorry. Oh, gosh. It's on the top of my pile. That's why. Okay.
Oh, God.
Julie, what were you on Comedy Fest?
Oh, many, where did it go?
Missed out.
She was
21.
21.
I was, again, I was the hard ass on that one.
And so 247,559.
247,559.
And if we take or the radio and sea turtles out of the requests, what was? I guess I
Oh,
can do that
you
math.
took them out of the, like, their ask out?
Yeah.
Well, that is 247.
Oh, 247.
That's
And
below
we're-
the 0 currently.
Oh, that's,
Yeah,
okay,
that's the recommendation that we have.
but that's not the total ask.
Well, the total ask was 337,549.
That's on this
Yeah, but
thing.
she wants that.
I minus sea turtles and the radio.
Oh, if you want to take out sea turtles and the radio, the ask amount was 267,381.
So we're about 20 grand shy. Okay.
So
So
Ashley,
there's 20 grand. give
Nine-
us a,
19, yeah.
Vehicle to put on the beach.
No,
How much is that? How much is that?
50 grand,
50 to do that for them?
but
Reasonable.
where do you store it? How do you charge it? How do you clean it? How do you check it out? I mean, I mean, the 50 grand is wonderful. It's so nice of her to offer. But what do you do with it?
Operational costs.
What do you do with it?
Well,
I made
that's
it
what-
clear.
If somebody's willing to buy it for us, then maybe our money is used. for-
That's my argument is, and the chamber is more than willing to be, the location. I mean, ideally, what we'd have is a location at the chamber for Whale Park, a location at the city hall for Gower, and ideally, maybe someday something down, at Tolavana, since that is the actual ramp, the only place that has a ramp right now.
Yeah.
That is where the Moby mats will be placed supposedly. We own them now.
Yeah.
We don't have a process for doing anything with them. I mean, it's all the other stuff that's the problem.
Yeah.
I did make sure that when the city was doing the remodel of this building, that to make sure that they had charging stations planned for at least 3 wheelchairs. Because it's a no-brainer. If City Hall's gonna stay here, that there should be a charging station, or more, and a way to check them out.
Mhm.
So, I made sure that hopefully they will add that into the design somewhere, so. Yeah, I think accessibility. The problem, I mean, who's gonna own it, right? The chamber, I mean, Jim is willing to own it. I'm not sure the city's willing to let him own it.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know, but that is the issue with a lot of things. And-
yeah, oh, absolutely it is, yeah.
Well, and the city did give him a letter of support for a grant he went after to have things on the site,
Paul,
on the chamber site. To have
Oh,
accessibility.
yes.
So the city
So-
did support that.
The only issue with the city was you guys, both chamber and the city both went for the AQUA grant, Travel Oregon grant. And the word on the street is they decided not to give either of us any money because it's like, what, they're not even talking to each other. Hey, so
But I
they're
don't
with
think we were
50
going for
grand
the same grant though. We went for two different items on the travel grants.
for accessibility. No, this is all about
Oh,
accessibility.
So that would, because we went for a different travel organ grant too. And then I know that the HRAP has been working with the chamber.
Yes,
Kelly's told me that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
although she
Because
never
I'll-
answered.
Good, sorry, can I interrupt quickly? I have a 5 o'clock call.
Okay.
Do you still
Okay.
need me?
We need, Ashley's recommended 2 votes. One with the gallery, one with gallery group separate from the rest of them.
Okay,
So we do need some votes real quick, and I think once we get that, Ashley can go, because then all we need to do is talk about other meetings.
Okay.
okay. So do we need to make a motion then?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm without the gallery group?
So do you want the
Gallery
dollar-
group first, because that's easier. Do the gallery group,
Okay.
not have Drea participate, and then do all remaining.
Perfect. So those 3 gallery groups, whatever the,
So that total for the 3 gallery groups is 29,700.
okay, so I'll make a motion that we approve recommending to city council that the gallery group receives 29,700 in grants from the TAC committee.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Drea?
You can't.
Drea
Yeah.
can't
And-
vote. She can't.
Oh,
vote.
that's
right.
All in favor, Drea recused.
Yes.
Sorry, forgot. Okay.
And then the
now we
other
need-
amount,
So
Now,
the other amount is for everybody else, and it's $217,859.17.
okay, then I will make a motion that all the others not, let's see, how do you say this?
All the remaining
All the
grantees.
remaining asks, we've recommending to city council, $217,859.17.
just clarification, do we have to specify that we are excluding sea turtles in the radio station?
No, because they have no recommendation numbers.
All right.
Anybody want to
I
second that?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Great, okay, there we go. Now Ashley can go.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Have a good
Bye.
evening.
Okay, so what's gonna happen next is this is gonna go to not December, July work session.
Which is already on my
It is
calendar.
on July 9th. And last year, we're like, Libby, can you do this? Because Steve was out and we're like, they never ask any questions, and then they grilled Libby.
Oh,
So-
poor Libby.
This year will be easier. So
I
we'll
know what
go,
I'm doing.
yeah, we'll go and we'll send the
Kind of.
recommendation to them. We'll put a footnote in there for Sea Turtles saying that we are still, you know, I don't know, I'll work with Libby on some language,
Okay,
just saying,
gotcha.
we're still working on the Sea Turtles. We may be back in the future.
Okay.
Then, they'll ask whatever questions they have, and then it would go for a vote on their August 2nd,
Okay,
around that date. Maybe it's the
Is
7th.
It's
that-
on my
is that
calendar,
meeting-
Libby. it's on my calendar.
July
So I'll be
9th?
there too, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So, anybody is welcome to attend.
Yeah.
August 6th, it would be vote on August 6th. So you're only one person's gonna be speaking though. It would be the representative, typically it's the chair unless she can't do it. Because if other people speak, you have a quorum. If you have a quorum and other people speak, it's a non-advertised meeting.
Okay.
So, Libby will go present on July 9th. That packet will go out July 3rd. And then council will vote on August 6th. And then, we need to come up with a date to review the midterms, which maybe you guys just do midterms and finals at the same time.
Yeah.
And we need to discuss sea turtles. So
So I wonder, when Bruce was talking about his 10,000 foot level, at what point do we get together with city council to talk about that?
So I wasn't at the last meeting. Are you guys ready to present your 10,000 foot level to council or?
I'm not even sure. I mean, I've said I think accessibility is super important, but I don't know, maybe Tom thinks it absolutely should be public art. We haven't even had that conversation
Well,
yet.
yeah, no, that's why I think we should have a meeting, you know, I mean, I'm in agreement with you,
Yeah.
obviously, public art and all that,
Yeah.
so I think what we just need to do is have a meeting that sits down and says, what do we want to present?
Right,
Right.
right.
You know, and maybe just, here's the projects that I think should be that we think should be
Right.
focused on. in this order.
Yeah,
Now, just keep in mind that it's not just the projects, you have to actually change your ordinance in order to be eligible to talk about these projects. So that's what the May meeting was supposed to be about, is what do you guys, what do you want to do? And what kind of, do you want to go to council and say, hey, we want to recommend these changes in the code? Because it gives us the authority, the opportunity to make recommendations for these items. Because right now, the way the code is written is you guys are just TAC grants.
right.
You have no
So
other
what
purview.
we had talked about, and that was in the minutes of that meeting that I wanted to get clarified
Yeah.
before we approve them. But we had talked about changing, it was just item G of the, what do you call it, the
Yeah.
charter or whatever that created us. And it would say that we would serve, and I'm not gonna remember the exact wording,
Okay.
but it's to the effect of that, we would serve as, an advisory group that would, and it's something to the effect of recommend, policy,
Priorities?
policy choices or recommend broad usage,
Right,
you know.
so that
Yeah,
meeting
I
would
can't
be to
figure out the word,
discuss,
but basically broad usage of the, of.
TAC funds.
Of TAC funds, you know, to support tourism and arts.
Okay, but that's
I
not,
gotta get it clear, cleaned
Yeah.
up, but
Okay.
that's the idea.
because that doesn't actually change your purview. That's
Well,
already
but,
your purview, so.
but it is, but what we're saying is, we're coming in on an advisory basis, which is not necessarily, so we could come in and we could sit down as a group and say, okay, we want to have accessibility. We want to have, public art policy purchase. We would like to, or we think, this is the way we put it, we think that the city council should prioritize the use of these funds over and above what we're already doing, the excess funds in this, to these projects.
So then what you'd want to do is you want to change the code to include other, not just the TAP funds?
Yeah, like
Yes.
in
Well,
the
it's just
infrastructure
funds,
stuff,
but potential different uses for them.
more of an
mean,
infrastructure.
So like right now, we're sitting here and we're, you know, if nothing else gets funded, we're gonna give out $247,000.
Yeah.
Out of a $1.2
And that's it.
million
Yes.
dollar budget, so, you know, so we got. What,
800,000.
$750,000, $800,000, so now we can sit down and say, okay, we think that we should consider projects under these headings.
And
And
so
not a specific,
Jennifer's point is, that is not part of our ordinance,
right,
correct?
Well, I'm
and
trying to.
that's what,
Okay.
line item G would be,
Yeah.
that we would recommend that they approve. That's the
Um,
first thing we'd
You
recommend.
want to make sure, I can't get on the website and it's driving me nuts. Let's just do it on this one.
Because Bruce had said, I want you guys flying at a 10,000
Yeah.
foot level, coming up with ideas. And letting them know what we felt our priorities were for that, but then we also felt like then those come back to us with specific grants outside of this traditional grant funding calendar.
Yeah, I gotta go back and try to.
We would have to
remember how-
change our, not our mission, but whatever is it an ordinance?
Well, you have to change your ordinance to be able to do anything outside grants.
Right,
So.
and that's,
But
and when we look this over.
But it's still a grant.
Still a grant.
Well, then, but you guys want to do
No,
other
it's not
things.
necessarily a grant. It's not necessarily a grant,
So-
and when we look this over, so I've got it right here, we read through this whole thing, and it sounds like, well, first of all, there's this perform other functions as directed by the council, which is kind of a catch-all.
Right, which is why council said, hey, tell us what you want so we can make it in the code.
And so what we were suggesting was, actually, this would become G, because you want to leave that at the bottom, so a new F, you know, would be that advisory role. But we need to define that advisory role a little bit
Exactly.
more precisely,
Yes.
but
So, and then once,
which we had that, and that's what was kind of lost, so let me think about that.
And my tricky part about that is I'm not gonna know how to. I mean,
oh, the change in the ordinance is.
But
easy.
it does say up there, the funds must be dedicated to tourism and tourism related facilities. So I don't understand, why would we even need to change it?
Well, this is
It's-
because you guys talked about wanting to have some oversight with the elementary school and other things. So right now you are able to monitor and distribute the tourism and arts funds.
Right.
And so based off of, such that the proper amounts are distributed, I mean, so,
We were able to do the bathrooms without changing the ordinance.
but we actually didn't have to get, like, you guys all said, yeah, we support this, but it
Yeah.
wasn't really,
Well, and
So,
that was the greater
administrative-
discussion that we had was that wasn't necessarily the route that was the foreseeable route of the future in funding those kinds of things. Like Bruce was like, come up with the ideas that you see are important directions, whether people are bringing those in them, or community members are bringing things in, that it would be a separate process set aside from this,
separate from the grants.
from the
Yes.
grants, where they would come and say, or it's us saying, yeah, public art, we'd like, we think this is important. City, how much do you think is, come back to us and say whether that's a grant. I mean, what kind of
But-
form do they come back to?
But it's still even on a more 10,000 foot level, because it's not really where the money is gonna come from. So, we're sitting here saying that we think that the city should prioritize accessibility to the beach.
You guys,
That's
I'm so
what,
sorry to interrupt. I'm so sorry. I have to log out. I have another meeting and that's starting in 1 minute.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Dre. Should we
I mean, we
table
can,
this for the next meeting?
we do need to come up with a meeting date, but Daria has to go. So let's come up with some dates and we can email her and see
Okay.
what works.
Sorry about
Okay.
that, you guys. Sorry.
Thank you, Dre.
So my understanding was tasked was that you guys wanted to come up with what is it that you want to do? And
Yes.
yes, it will be the 10,000 foot level.
Yeah.
But then we have to make it so you can do it. So you would
Yes.
present to council, these are the kind of things we want to oversee. There's been talk about having a little bit more involvement with the chambers payments and the chamber, like more of the the 1%.
Well, they're all from
They're all
one,
one-
they're all from one.
1%, all the different buckets, I guess is. one of the-
The 2015 increase, which was the,
Yeah.
network tourism, which was the,
Uh,
tour promotion fund.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if that's the kind of stuff you want to have oversight on, those are the kind of things that have to be included in the ordinance. And again, it's just advisory, because all the committees are advisory committees.
Yeah, of
But
course.
those are things that council then allows you to have, you're allowed to be tasked with looking at. Because right now the code doesn't actually give you that authority. So council then gives you guys authority to look at these items. So you would go to council and say, these are the kind of things we want. So in a meeting, we'd say, this is the kind of stuff we want. We literally just add the letters to the
Yeah,
thing.
right.
We bring it, Ashley reviews it and says, yep, this stuff would work. We bring it to council and council, it would be a work session. And then we would talk to council. These are the kind of things we want to do. Council may say yes, they may say no, they may say, let's change it to this. And so it's kind of working through what it is you guys want to do with this commission, because there is, like you guys have said, you have a lot of knowledge here and you can offer a lot of input. Once council says yes, then you start saying, these are our priorities, this is what we want to do.
So,
But,
Go ahead.
no, but I guess the part I'm missing is that Bruce wants a different setup, or, my impression from him was the setup with how the bathroom stuff proceeded wasn't the template we want to have for the future.
And I'm not gonna disagree with that at all, because that was done kind of like in the past, everyone said we would support this, we wanna
Yeah.
do it, and we kind of just did it.
Yeah, and I guess that's where, yeah, we've got a lot of money, but I also think like we can't be all over the board with a lot of different ideas and someone runs, that's yes,
see,
the
that's at
city has,
10,000 foot level. What are your priorities for
Yes.
this year? What areas? So if beach accessibility is your priority for this year, and that's what we go to. Now, what projects fall under beach accessibility?
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and certainly, having these, I forget what you call
Rolling
them.
nets or the Davis chair.
But how-
Davis chair or something like that.
Yeah.
That's certainly one, but beach accessibility could also be putting in another set of steps at some place where
Yeah.
there's just a path or something like
Yes.
that,
Whale Park.
but are we
Yeah.
talking numbers in there? Cause do you want all
No, we're not-
600 and
No,
something?
because that money
Just
doesn't,
that 10,000 feet.
that money doesn't when we're making these recommendations, that money does not have to come from TAC funds. All we're saying is that beach,
It
our
could come from
recommendation,
us.
it could come
But
from us.
the whole
but
point is it
could
gets
come
to
from-
go to City
you know,
Hall.
Because it's
I mean,
the same
council.
thing as you go back to the park.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
You sit down and say, we need to have electricity in the park.
Yeah.
And, oh, well, parks will pay for that.
Yeah.
Okay, great, but
So,
it's.
It's
TAC
advisory in
would be
terms of what the
recommended.
priority should be, and it might be our money, and it might be somebody else's
Or
money.
a combination.
But if
Yes.
they're gonna come, if they're gonna do
Yes.
our money, they need to come back to us and
They
say,
need
hey,
to come
this is
back
the
to us
part
with the project.
that we want you to fund.
Yeah,
So
with-
that
with us
we would
asking for
say,
specific-
okay, yes, we can
So-
get on
so-
board with
so we're
that.
still in the grant business.
Because
Not getting
yeah,
into
because
grant business.
I think that the thing is what you don't want is to say, okay, we want to do accessibility, and they start saying, okay, so we're gonna do the Moby mats and the David's chairs and the all that from your fund, and we have no, like, because then people start coming back to us and be like, wait, why can't you do this if you know, I don't know. I just feel like,
That's the fine line,
that's the-
because we're advisory,
yeah,
and they have the
They
end all
have the final
say.
Oh, yeah.
say, so, yeah.
On everything.
But again, I'll say, I think the community looks at us as knowing what's going on and transpiring and kind of an advisory with, semi-checks and balances, shall I say, of some of that. So that's kind of a little where I'm torn, like, how do you combine all
Yeah.
of that?
Well, and like we've learned a lot since the lights, but the lights ones, Bruce was like, yeah, this is a great idea, let's go. But the other part was he thought you guys could only award through the grant process. Because, and we're not a 501(c)(3), so how do you apply? But then now she's like, well, administratively, you guys can do a lot of stuff too. But then we want to make sure that's something in the code. Because when you see the Tourism and Arts Fund, the Tourism and Arts Fund is that grant process
Yes.
typically. So we want to make sure that you are eligible to spend any of that.
Yes.
In that fund, which is called Tourism and Arts Fund, but it's typically referred to the grants.
Right.
But we want to
Yes.
make sure you guys are able to make recommendations for all of those funds. But if you also want to be an oversight of the elementary school, you need to talk about that, or the other funds.
And that's where I get.
Yeah.
wait, I don't.
This is, I'll give you my 2 cents.
Yeah.
And I'll do it in a little bit of a history lesson because I think it paints a picture. So in 2010, TAF was created, 1% increase to Oregon state law, 30/70/30, and that's what we're talking about right now. We're sitting on $800,000 after we put monies, but it's a big number now. It used to not be such a big number.
Yes.
In 2015, the lodging industry went, and the Chamber of Commerce went to the city and said, hey, raise it 1 more percent, and can we use the 70% to promote Cannon Beach, because there was no promotion going on at the time. You never saw any advertising, you never saw, it was all done by individual businesses chipping in to do the chamber thing, plus fund the visitor center and the staff that funds that 360 some odd days a year. So that was in 2015, and that number has grown, and it's a
Yes.
bigger bucket of money. And just a side note there, as that got bigger, then everyone's like, well, the chamber gets so much money. Well, they do, and they don't, because the city is like pulling things back, and where do we go? Nobody's overseeing that funnel except for, I guess, the council. Like, we don't oversee it as a committee.
Yeah.
We do not,
And-
and they are, I mean, city council keeps saying, well, they get so much money, it's like, it's to fund the DMO.
Yeah.
Which they renegotiated, and now it's the DMO and the visitor center is
Right.
what they get from that money. A destination management.
Yeah, so,
Yeah,
so
sorry.
basically, the easiest way to think about it, in my opinion, is in this, there's no marketing manager in this city hall.
Nope, there's
They
not.
outsource it to the chamber to say, hey, you be
Yes.
our marketing manager. And they could fire the chamber tomorrow and go to, like the city of Bend does, to another company that charges $3 million a year.
Yeah.
Chamber, in my opinion, does a pretty good job for a lot of volunteers and local people and so forth, and some paid staff. So that was 2015. Then the county came along and raised lodging tax, and gave the money back, and that was to support the jail.
That was the jail,
The
yeah.
jail thing, and so the city started getting money back, which is essentially what purchased the school.
Yep.
I don't know who's overlooking and seeing that, but there's lodging, there's TLT coming back that is the same amount as our budget. that is, goes to the school or purchase the school.
Yep,
And then just recently, last year, they increased it another 1.5% to operate the school, and well, the restricted part would go to the school.
Yeah.
The unrestricted was the fire station and, I mean, the police station and
yeah,
so forth. So now you got 4 spigots of TLT money that is all restricted by the state. And there is no committee. We're the closest committee
yep,
to the city. So 2 things in my mind would happen. You're either gonna start, you get one committee like us to oversee all 4, just as advisory,
Mhm.
you know, to say, hey, you know, this one could be doing this, or or open your charter to be able to mingle funds some way, as long as they meet the state code.
right.
Or you get 4 different committees to do that, and then it's
Well,
just a big
That's
mess.
what Gary was originally just saying, is that we should have we should have another committee. Well, he said this in a meeting that I happened to be at, where we should have another committee that's all about infrastructure and blah, 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 to oversee that money. And I sent a letter after that and said, you already have a committee that can do this. If you disagree with the talent you have on that current committee, fine, fire us all. And well, I wasn't on it yet at that point, but it's like fire everybody and have everybody
more
reapply.
volunteers. You already have a vacancy open.
We had 3 vacancies at
Yeah.
the time, and he wants to start another one.
Yeah.
And it's like, you already have a committee that can do this. If you don't think you have people on it, that's one thing, but otherwise, then open up what you think of what people should be pitching you to be on this committee, and let the TAC committee do all that, which is when it sort of opened up, and it's like, well, yeah, that's Bruce is like, well, 10,000 foot level and blah, blah, blah.
You know, he's
So-
standing behind you right
Is he? But anything else you want to do outside of TAP,
I didn't.
we do need to change your code. So if you
Correct.
want more oversight in anything, that's what council wants to know, is they wanted to know what it is that you guys want to do. And then we can make the necessary changes, and then as long as they agree.
Yeah.
And then you
There.
can start working on those things. But like Greg brought up, there's a lot of different buckets there.
Yeah.
Because that's something I've heard you guys talk about in the past, the CBE, there's a lot of
Yeah.
different things. So you really only want to change your code once, because to change it, you have to do an ordinance, read it twice by title, it goes in effect 30 days.
Yep.
So you kind of want to come up
Do
with
that.
everything you want to do. And it is broad, because you don't want to get down to the weeds, because then you know.
And I think that's a hard thing, because I think a lot of people in the community are already, just by the name alone, think that we do have a broader sense of some oversight and whatnot. I mean, I get stopped sometimes on different things, and I'm like, you know,
I'm
huh?
not involved with that.
You know, so I guess that's a decision, you know,
I'm not
of
good
how
at
deep.
bureaucracy talk, so I feel like I'm not prepared to update the ordinance. I kind of feel like, can I say it in regular words to say what we'd like to do, and have somebody make that into a bureaucracy
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah.
I'm not good at
I'm on
that.
that page.
Like, so,
Yeah.
yeah, because what would happen then is we would probably change a little bit in here to clarify the difference between the grants and then all the other duties that it is you guys want to have, because this is literally your powers and duties. You know,
So I'm wondering how we do this broadly enough so that we do that 10,000 foot, you know, our committee recommends that the city focuses their attention on and their funds and so forth on X.
Yeah.
But what if we decide, for example, that we want to administer a public arts purchase program? How do we, but we don't want to say specifically administer a public arts program, but we want to have it written broadly enough that if we decide at some point that, yeah, okay, we'll create a public art purchase policy and we will administer that. That's our responsibility as TAC. We want to do that, but we don't want to. You see what I'm saying?
No, I don't.
So.
Like a one-time thing or an ongoing?
Well, they put the money in there every year.
But I'm thinking, you know, there might be a number of things. So we might, you know, this group might decide that we want to administer a
Mhm.
public arts
Mhm.
purchase program. Okay. We might decide we want to put on a jazz festival or sponsor a jazz festival or something like that. What language do we put in there that gives us the ability to do that without specifying those items.
you would
Bruce,
make-
do you understand what I'm
You
saying?
would make
Do you have an
recommendations.
idea of how we?
Not the jazz festival, because the whole point is somebody else has to gotta come to us and say, we want to put on a jazz festival, and then ask us for money. The public arts
Or
buying,
we can initiate it.
but
and-
somebody's gotta wanna do it, cause
I know, I
that
know.
is huge.
No, I know,
Okay.
I get that, but that doesn't mean we can't initiate it, and that's what I want, us to have the ability to initiate it.
And the initiating was part of the problem with the bathrooms when I was still on this committee. Cause we wanted to initiate that, and it was like, there really wasn't a
A mechanism.
Yeah.
mechanism to do that.
But you can make recommendations for other uses of the TRT funds.
Which
I mean, and that could be very broad because you're making recommendations of how to use these funds.
Mhm.
But I do think that this as a commission is probably limited to just those funds. Unless council chooses to use other funds for it. So I don't know that that you would be able to recommend uses for other funds outside of the TRT.
But we could come and say, I'm gonna come up, I'm not, well, let's say let's use the public art.
Mhm.
So we think that public art is important and we'd like to start up, have a program for doing that, whatever. And that because it would be placed in the parks, that maybe we would fund the program part and the buying of the art, but the parks people would pay for the installation of the art.
Now, how's that related to tourism and art? Or I guess it's art. Okay, never mind. I forgot the
Just
tourism.
public policy, I mean, it's
Got it,
just
the
the
art,
public
okay.
art.
Got it.
part.
Okay, I forgot that. I'm like,
So-
tourism and art, and tourism and the other part. Okay.
The art is not part of the state law.
The art is not part of the
So,
state. law,
but-
so that would
That's
be the
our thing.
other.
But if you
okay.
have an art trail
Yes.
and people come to
Correct.
do their art trail
The map.
with a map,
Then
then
you can
it
very much,
is.
yeah.
So that's how I would think of doing it. It's like going to city council. We think this is important. We have the money. It's in your budget already, right? And so we would administer it. We will buy the art and then we want parks to put it in, like to install it. Wouldn't that make sense?
Yeah, because you can
Yes.
ask, you can make recommendations, but you
Well,
can say
insta-
anything
installation
tourism or
and
art
And
related.
maintenance, yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
Because you always,
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
you always
Good
run the risk of vandalism
Yeah,
in
yeah.
public art,
Good
that
point.
stuff that has to be
So
cleaned up.
that's how I would view that working.
So you would have to say something about how you would want to have, because what's the language here where it says make recommendations to council? Once the commission has made the final decisions on how the TAF would be allocated, this information shall be presented to council for review and approval. But this would be basically making decisions on tourism and art related,
Right?
you know,
And they would have to
and
approve
they would
that
still have to approve.
parks, we're gonna say that, yes, parks will go ahead and put them in and maintain it. And then they have to deal with parks on how they're gonna use that budget to do that.
And that would probably end up being something that would have to be budgeted in the future anyways with them. It just kind
Am I
of,
thinking about that right?
Yeah, except I would probably downplay the part about parks installing, because I would have the artist install. So that can stay, with you guys, whatever you do, it's create the art, install the art, it's a contract.
Yeah, but my experience with public art is that, a lot of times an artist might create something, but it requires a foundation put in or something like that. And that's where typically parks would be responsible for creating, like if they need a cement slab or something with bolts in it to hold it in place, something like that. But they would be responsible for that. The artist usually doesn't create that. That's been my experience with it. So,
I agree, just based on our organization, I'd probably rather that this group works with Public Works.
I just
installation.
pulled
Yeah,
parks out of it
Yeah,
because we were
because-
talking about doing
yeah,
two buckets of money. So,
yeah, and also two different groups with one artist.
yes.
So,
so oversight of tourism and art related components and make recommendations to council.
Yes.
I mean, this is like rough, obviously, we
That's
have to
okay.
do a lot, but these are kind of some of the things that we would want to have in the code in order to give you guys the authority to move forward.
So then the other part I have a question about, which I believe Gary had brought up in that meeting when he had to come to Jesus, that we only had one, we don't need multiple. Then it's how do we get recommendations like we have our own ideas, we've had our ideas, but if somebody, is there a way for someone, a regular person to come and recommend that, regular person?
Yeah.
A citizen, excuse me, a citizen of our community to come and say, hey, I think you guys should be focusing, or I think we should do this. And it's not an event. It's, I want a bathroom on Chisana Street. And what if we were, I mean, that's a dumb idea because that's not gonna happen, but
Yeah, I get your point though.
Yeah.
The Parks Committee, that happens all the time, not all the time, but people be like, hey, we think you guys should do this. Oh, I'll use the community garden. Every year for the longest time, people would come in and say, we want to see a community garden. You're the Parks and Community Services.
Yeah.
Can we have a community garden? So they would come and present it. They would kind of give their spiel and the committee would discuss it. And usually we would discuss it back when I was on it for 2 or 3 months because you start doing some research and you realize that it's not quite as easy
oh yeah.
as what they
Yeah,
say. And then it kind of filters out, and then like 2 years later, somebody comes back in, but they do that with anything. So somebody would come to a meeting and they would say, hey, I actually think this is something you guys should do, or they would send me or Bruce an email. We would forward it to you guys. You'd say, hey, let's put it on the agenda for the next meeting, invite them to come to our meeting. They would plead their case and you guys debate on whether or not that's
Okay.
something you think is a good idea.
I guess I was confused because we don't have regular meetings, like, Parks is every month.
Right.
Planning, everybody else is every once a month. We are as needed.
Yeah, but as you broaden your spectrum,
You're
you're
right.
gonna need to meet more often in order to meet and talk about things. And sometimes they might be very short meetings. Sometimes we have 20-minute meetings at the Public Works Committee. But maybe that would be something if you're gonna be taking on a bigger responsibility. Sorry, everyone likes to.
No, I'm laughing. He's going 20 minutes.
Love it.
To accomplish that then.
Okay,
But I
I'm
mean,
with
it,
you.
Yeah.
it is just still the beginning
Yeah,
conversation,
yeah.
but there's a lot that can be done.
Yeah,
okay, all right, I get that.
Well, it is getting late, so
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
can
yeah,
talk
so-
about the next
Meeting.
meeting, so we can continue this discussion and we need to discuss sea turtles. And I guess the first thing with sea turtles is, do we want to invite him to a meeting to have an open discussion? Or do we want to try to put together a letter and send it to him?
I say we put together a letter and send it to him.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
What do
With
you
the
think?
personality,
You know it better.
what do you think is the most effective way?
It's gonna be a long meeting.
we are still recording because we have to be. I don't know your opinion of him. I know that working with him, it's usually better in person than it is in writing.
Yeah.
Because you can have more of a dialogue.
Dialogue.
But we,
You'll accomplish more, for sure.
yeah, because you end up with a lot of questions and you're going back and forth in questions then. But we can also talk to Ashley and kind of get a list of talking points based off of some of the information we talked about. I can work with her and then we can kind of have like a, hey, we'd like you to come meet with you. These are, we'll be prepared to know what to say to him.
Okay,
If that's,
Yeah, I mean,
That-
I'm gonna say my 2 cents is give them a highlight of what we discussed today, and here's kind of what we're thinking. You're not gonna get what you asked for, but here's why we think that way, and here's where you could take it. Kind of what we talked about, and everything. And we'd like you to come talk to us on this date,
okay.
and if we can't figure it out then
And maybe with a time window,
yeah.
an allocation of time.
And as far as dates for future meetings, my only suggestion is we try to avoid Tuesdays.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
what were we
Okay.
thinking? We've forgotten about the farmer's
Didn't even
market.
think about it.
Through
Well,
September.
and
Through September.
Yep, September 10th is the last market. It is Rusty's birthday, so that is the only reason I know when the last market is.
I was gonna say, dang. Oh, wow.
Oh,
Hilarious.
that's kind of funny.
And my other request is that if it's on a Thursday, that we make sure that we end in plenty of time so we can get over to Buster.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and I know for Drea, she likes the later meetings, but we do need to have a little bit more time
Mhm.
because the 1-hour meetings, we can't quite get enough. accomplished.
No, and are we talking midterm finals and sea turtles and 10,000
Well.
foot topics?
Midterm finals won't all be here because
Oh,
I
yeah.
think they get like 30 days after June 30th. So we
Okay.
could do both at the same time if you want. We can still try to squeeze in midterms and sea turtles. And maybe we focus on sea turtles and then do I mean, how much do you want to put in one meeting? I
I
guess would
don't
be
know. I guess it depends what day and time.
How many midterms do we have?
As much as we can get done in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So I did not get everybody's midterm. There was I think gallery group was missing one. I got almost everybody. So let me pop into that folder.
No more Tuesday meetings. Oh, farmer's market. You're gonna move farmer's market to the school when it's done?
Would like to,
I figured.
if there's storage problems with that too, because they take up a lot of room when they're not doing it.
You're not doing it?
Yeah.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 midterms.
Okay.
To be honest with you guys, I also have, I think, well, I have one saved in here. I think I have this, like 2 finals. Oh, no, Chamber's working on their final because Alan emailed me. So I know they're working on their finals, so we're gonna have some finals. We could
Okay.
go through both at the same time. But the biggest thing right now is gonna be the sea turtles.
Yeah.
But I will work with Ashley, take my notes, get with her, and then I can shoot out an email to you guys and say, hey, these are the points we'd like to send him. You guys can't reply all because that's a serial meeting, but you can reply to me, say, hey, this looks good, or hey, you forgot this. And then we can invite him to a meeting.
Okay.
So.
So what do you think
let's-
is a good time? I mean,
I guess, Greg, when are you gonna be up for a meeting?
Oh, 2 or 3 days.
2 or 3 days? Okay.
I mean, that's what they tell me.
oh yeah, cause you,
It's just a meniscus repair.
Yeah,
I need to be back the next day.
Oh, gosh, I'd forgotten all
I'll be-
about that.
I'll be getting out of surgery about this time tomorrow.
Oh, God.
Well, and
I was going to a baseball game the day after my surgery.
No,
Meniscus.
you had the same thing done?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
it's
Okay.
not that bad.
Oh, good.
It's
It's
a
a couple of days,
There's two tiny little cuts.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
poop, 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 out and you're done. So,
I will have to be no weight on my left leg for 6 weeks, but I don't know how bad that's gonna be.
You have a little.
Brace.
Oh,
That's a
great.
little
I
bit
can't do
more.
a scooter because I can't bend my knee.
Yeah, yeah.
I had
that's right.
crutches for 6 months
Oh,
Oh.
and a 3-story house.
Oh, my God.
I drove her around.
Jackie drove me for 6 months. I couldn't drive.
I
You're a
learned
good
how to
friend.
get down the
Yeah.
stairs on my butt.
so what
Okay.
day are we picking here?
so let's,
Yeah.
if we can look at July,
Yeah.
that way we have plenty of time. I'm still kind of
Let's do
getting.
July 4th.
Yeah.
There's nothing going on.
There's nothing going on then,
Yeah, I was gonna say, can I bring my hot dog from across the street?
Are Mondays good for anybody or are they bad?
Mondays,
Mondays are good for me.
Mondays are not.
Oh, God, of course not.
So what about Wednesdays?
I volunteer at the food bank from 3 to.
Oh,
5
okay.
On,
And
Wednesdays.
Tuesdays are out. Thursdays,
I mean, I can do Wednesday as long as I'm, out of here by 2:30.
oh, yeah, and I don't think the Drea can go that early, can she?
That's too bad because early mornings are good for me. Oh, it's so great. Oh, God.
I can always email her and say, hey, are there dates that you could do an earlier meeting?
That's true.
And I could do early on Fridays
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
not, you know.
I can do all day on Fridays. I am here
Ooh.
for sure.
I mean, the 5 o'clock on Friday, the 4 o'clock on Friday was rough, but if you want to start it.
Yeah, earlier.
8:30 on Friday,
Yeah.
I'm here.
So my big kid is getting married in Texas.
Oh.
So we are gonna be in Texas July 11th and 12th, which is the worst time of the year. to be in
Yeah, it's gonna
Texas.
be hot.
But,
I'm sorry.
man, I love that child.
Oh,
So
it's a good thing you love them.
it's a good thing.
Ooh.
So I don't know if we want to look at well, do you want me to try to get a hold of Drea and see if she has earlier dates? Or should we look at?
Earlier dates than this?
I mean, earlier
Oh.
times.
Oh,
earlier
sure.
in the day. Yeah.
I mean, I could do
I'm gonna
July
do-
5th. I'm sure that nobody wants to do that.
July 5th.
I can't do July
You
5th because
can't.
I've got like 20 people in town. So that
Oh.
day.
I'm so glad nobody wants to come to my house on July
Go to a
4th.
meeting and-
Except for it's your
But I gotta
cousins it's your cousins in town. Not true. Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna email her.
I mean, okay, I could do a Monday. I just may have to Zoom it. Put it that way.
Oh, the Haystack Hill meeting. Oh, I have it at 5:30 in the morning.
On what day?
No, and on Monday is the 5:30 at the Haystack Hill meeting.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Chamber's happening. I had it at 5:30 AM.
Oh,
How about we do
PM?
PM on that one? So I am available, Monday until the Haystack Hill meeting.
So that would be Monday, the 8th.
Yes, or well, actually,
I'm-
that's July 1st. The
Oh, yeah,
Haystack
that's
Hill
yeah,
meeting
that's-
is on the 1st.
Yeah, that's too early. 'cause we still
I
have to
can
get
do the
stuff.
8th.
I I have to be somewhere at 2:15 on the 8th.
Okay.
So we could do early,
Early.
as long, but
Yes.
Dre is the problem.
Well, and I shot her an email real quick, so let me just write down July 8th before 2 o'clock.
We have to end before 2 o'clock.
Okay, so let's
Um,
say July 8th,
I'm just trying to figure out.
and let's see what Drea says. And then,
Okay.
Can't do the 11 to 12, that's too bad. Oh, I can't do the 11. That's our bus tour. I'll be,
What was the consensus on the 8th?
the 8th would only work if it ends before 2 o'clock, so I emailed Drea to see if there was any days of the week that she could meet earlier.
That works for me as long as it's before 6.
Definitely will be before 6.
Okay.
Wait, before 6 at night.
yes, and that's 16.
I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm like, wait a minute.
I work 22 hours a day.
I was gonna say.
Well,
Turn off.
let's see if,
I'm gonna hold the 8th
Yeah,
then
I
for the
am,
whole
yeah.
day, just in case, because I don't want me to stupidly forget about this.
and I'm gonna reserve the conference, or the council chambers the whole day, just to.
Okay.
And I'm gonna book it from 9 to 2.
Okay.
Because, I have a hard time getting here at 8.
Yeah, it works better for me too, because it gives me a chance to burn off some puppy.
Some puppy energy.
All right, I will follow up with Drea and see, even if there's not a date, if she can make something work on July
Okay.
8th. And so, and then I'm gonna actually see Turtle Point.
Well, July 9th is city council, the meeting. Okay, I got that in. Okay. And then we can just respond to you, not reply all on dates and whatnot. I did that.
You've done great.
I did it once over the Moby Mats, the first email I ever got, and I was like, oh no.
All right, so that'll be our plan. I'll shoot you guys an email once I hear back from Drea. I'll get a list, make sure Ashley agrees with the list, and then send it to you guys to make sure I didn't miss anything big. And you send me your comments, and then, when we're good to go, we'll invite Mark for the meeting, hopefully on the 8th.
So we're trying to do all 3 of those things on one meeting,
So we
which is
wanna,
fine with me.
okay, so we wanna do sea turtles.
Sea turtles and midterms/finals.
Do you wanna, okay, so let me pop in here. So we're gonna, try it for July 8th.
Try to put a strict timeframe around sea turtles.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
I don't want to have to run on.
Yeah, no.
Just
Yes.
have to, you just gotta control it.
Hit the points and.
You
I
just
know.
gotta control it.
Well, let's try, we'll go through sea turtles, midterms, and then try to get some more language for the ordinance as
Ordinance.
recommendations.
Okay.
Okay.
And then, as you guys are talking, make your mental list of things that we want
Things
to
you're
do. So
gonna-
then, once we go to council, if council says yes, we can schedule another meeting.
Ooh,
Yay, and, move forward on things.
Great,
But we are getting there.
yes.
All right.
Yeah, it's the verbiage that is intimidating.
Yes.
And what I thought was kind of cool, though, instead of council saying, this is what we want to do, they did say,
Yeah.
what do you
Oh,
guys want
totally.
to do? Which was.
They were all
Yeah,
excited
because-
about us coming to them with all the ideas. They were like, yeah, you tell us, because we don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
then I will tell you.
All right,
Lots of ideas, I'm sure.
so anything for good of the order?
Don't think so.
Let me just ask you a quick question.
Oh, yes.
What's the time concern with sea turtles? And the reason I'm saying that is if you folks just kind of give a yes or a no, staff can work out all the details.
We have questions from Mark.
Okay, so, but, and so you're gonna make the decision on whether he gets the money or he already has the money, and you have questions.
No,
No.
we're not sure we want to give him money unless he can answer. How long have you been sitting there? I don't know how long he's
Not
been
long
sitting,
enough.
not long enough.
He didn't hear the Mark discussion.
So right now, he's,
Thank you, no
right now.
problem.
Yeah, I'm sure you have.
Yeah,
Right now, we were, a bunch of us were 0, and then Greg brought up some good points, and it's like, well, maybe we should, but we have questions for him,
Okay.
and Ashley had questions regarding whether or not it would fly for the ordinance, I mean, for the state law.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm just saying, when it comes down to the details, just turn it over to staff.
Well, we want to have him come back.
Well,
talk.
I
Yeah.
know, but, I'm saying, but when you get to that point, instead of him getting you, roping you in on, well, can I have a dumpster at the such and such?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So we'll leave.
No, I know what I'm saying, but just.
Okay.
Understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think our concern was is he had it during
Summer.
summer and a longer profile rather than like a tester program, a little more shoulder season with an event.
Yeah, we're definitely not in the weeds.
And what would that, yeah.
I want to save you from it, because
I know, I understand. We already had a meeting and I saw him do that. I saw
Hindsight.
that. I can see he goes into the weeds real fast. I get it.
All right,
Um,
do you wanna?
okay. Meeting adjourned.
All right.